Hello, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. If you enjoyed this video or the channel as a whole, please consider subscribing, hitting the notification bell, liking the video if you think we did a good job, and most importantly, sharing this video everywhere. We would greatly appreciate it. Your support means everything to us, and thanks to everyone who already supports us. Today, we're having a bit of a different conversation / topic, and I have a special guest with me. Hannah, if you want to go ahead and say hi to everybody.
Hello, hello. My name is Hannah. I have been walking in the light over on the White Cloaks channel for a couple live streams over there. And I got pulled in by the questioners to have a quick chat over here. So thanks for having me.
Everybody needs a good old taste of representation.
Token woman. That's my
Yeah.
niche. Yeah.
Token woman who
Never
actually
again.
has a point. There's that.
Yeah. I
But
like to
yeah,
think so.
so we're actually talking about relationships from the show perspective versus the book perspective, how they dramatically change things, and what we're expecting come season 2,
Ugh.
and Rafe's quote unquote vision of the romantic or non-romantic, in my opinion, side of characters' relationships. So, um, would you like to pick out anything particular to
I'm
dip
just
into?
saying, I love how we failed in terms of adaptational fidelity in almost every aspect. But like the worst is just the relationships. In almost every way, the relationships fail. And, um, and I'm not someone who thinks that Robert Jordan is above critique for like relationships. I think he, tends to overemphasize power dynamic differentials. And I think there's, a little heavy on the BDSM elements in some places. But I don't think that those elements detract from the overall experience of reading the books. In fact, it was kind of refreshing to go from the sterile, PC, corporate, calculated, modern woke fantasy books I was reading to something
Lack
like,
of intuition and ingenuity.
yeah, to like something that's got a little bit more, it's like a little more authentic and, a little bit more personal. It's not as self-conscious.
I mean,
Um,
personally, I found the relationships and how men viewed women and women viewed men to be absolutely hilarious.
oh yeah, it was
Like
really
it,
funny.
it, it was great, and somehow they're like trying to like. I see all these people who are fans of the show who are like, "Yeah, I'm a fan of the book, but he did a terrible job on the men and women." I'm like, "Are you joking right now?"
Oh, like
Like,
literally the first chapter, we have Tam El Thor, who is a well-respected member of the village council,
and
having to
single.
like walk quietly through the village because any member of the like women's circle could just grab him and pull him into their kitchen and tell him he needs to get married again. Like
I mean,
that's fucking
effectively, the
funny.
women's circle for Tam specifically is like the Tinder application.
Absolutely. I know a woman. Don't worry, babe. I got you. She's perfect.
Don't worry, I know somebody.
Yeah, exactly. I
and
thought that
and the
was
best
so
thing is
funny.
that he has literally everything they could ever want: good looks, skill, talent, and a nice big old farm.
Big old plot of land, red-haired stepchild they don't have to raise. He's got
Really
everything.
tall one too,
Very,
who's
yeah,
very well known.
little unusual. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But yeah, no, it's just funny how they're like, instead of just toning down some of the more like buck wild elements, they were outright replacing those elements with other things, like worse
Or nothing at
things.
all.
Yeah, like just the weird hookup culture that they kind of have. We're like, oh yeah, no, Rand and Egwene can totally just smash and it's fine. It's just cash. Like
Which is
it's
not how the two rivers was
not.
at
No,
all.
you had to like get on your knees in front of the women's circle and ask them permission to get married. Like,
Like how everybody thinks like Twitter is like puritanical or whatever, like that would be closer to what Emmons Field was like, or the Two Rivers as a whole, if you include Watch Hill and Devon's Rye,
oh yeah.
more than what they like showed us in the show. Is
Could
like,
you imagine Matt's deadbeat trailer park parents in like Book Edmondsfield? Oh my God, they would have gotten shamed to oblivion. There would have been so
oh,
much
they wouldn't have
sniffing
been
and
shamed.
so
They would
much
have been
brain
literally just
chugging.
booted. They would have been
Yeah,
like,
they might have just
Tarn
gotten wet.
Ferry, get out, go
Yeah,
on, get.
go over to Devon Ride, losers. Yeah,
No, like completely out of the Two Rivers, like on the opposite side of Tarrant Ferry. You're Tarrant Ferry folk. Like,
you
get out
Terran
of here.
Fairy folk. Oh my God, I forgot about Terran Fairy folk.
Yeah,
God
like
damn.
the most unlikable group that's even like remotely related to the two rivers, like go there because we don't like them and we don't like you, so go on get.
See,
Like,
and that kind of fantasy tribalism was also so funny and charming, and just like completely devoid in the entire show. It's just a shame.
there's so much that was missing. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so like for me, my favorite character, like my favorite character is Matt, but like Nynaeve is probably my
Everybody
second.
who has a soul, their favorite character is Matt.
Absolutely, dude, Matt is best boy. Matt is best character. I adore Matt, but
Although Talmanis comes really close second.
oh well, you know, it's hard when like one character is an extension of the other. But yeah, no.
I know,
So
right? Yeah,
best
they're very
girl,
different from each other, but also very similar.
my favorite question in the Wheel of Time fandom is who is best girl and why is it Nynaeve? Because Nynaeve is best girl.
Because her power level's over 9,000.
Because her power level's over 9,000. Like she's just tugging that braid so hard. Yeah, no, but just because she has this great arc where she starts out as a total asshole, and by the end she is undisputably best girl. And they just totally torched all of her relationships, and I'm not just talking about like romantic ones either. Like, yes, they completely ruined the Lan relationship, but like the sort of adversarial, like strained relationship she had with Egwene, where they were like foils for each other, was completely thrown out the window for just women supporting women. And so this like sort of adversarial, like rough relationship between the two, where they brought out different elements of each other and challenged each other, was completely sacrificed on the pyre of women supporting women. And like that just pissed me off. Like,
or like the intro we have to the show is literally just throwing Egwene off a cliff. Like,
could you
who
imagine?
is Egwene and why do I care? Like,
book Nynaeve would call that like some wool-headed thinking, probably done by men thinking with the hair on their chest.
I was just about to say that too.
Book Nynaeve would be furious to see people jumping off a cliff like that, because they'd expect her ass to go heal them. Like, no,
well,
God,
not even that. It was just like, what's the point?
It's so
pointless. They don't have cliffs in Emond's Field.
Well, you see, what it is because they didn't have a very obvious and visual way to indicate womanhood. It's not like they had something on their character design that would indicate, oh wait, they're braids. Like, yeah.
Oh wait, tug.
Yeah, literally. And like they say, Rafe Judson has said that Egwene is his favorite character. I don't think I believe that, because you know her whole thing in that first book, Eye of the World, was she left town. She's a little bit ashamed of her parochial background, so she immediately unbraids her hair so she can kind of fit in and like leave her, you know, Edmund's Field life behind her, because she's ambitious and she's
which
going out to get it.
Which I might point out that Rand kind of makes fun of her, or is either Rand or Matt? I think both.
Yeah, they make fun of her
for not having her braid.
Yeah, and then when Egwene, when Nynaeve shows up at the inn, Egwene like sees her and like pulls up her hood real quick to hide the fact she's unbraided her hair. And it just sort of creates this contrast, a foil between these two characters, because, you know, even, you know, 10 books in, Nynaeve is talking about those good Two Rivers woolens. Meanwhile, like literal like 5 chapters in, Egwene is like, I'm going to unbraid my hair.
I'd like to point out real quick, just for everyone who's potentially watching, potential spoilers depending on how far you are into the series, but
yeah.
you haven't said it, you haven't said anything. It's what I was going to say next, was like, so if you are not either completed with the series or far enough along with it or whatever, you have been warned.
Yeah,
but basically when it gets to like Egwene ends up with the Aiel, they're like, we're going to shame you by making you braid your hair, and she's like, but that's the opposite in my culture from a child. So
that means I'm a woman.
It's different, which is what makes it so great, is that like she doesn't understand, because in her culture, braiding is the sign of womanhood, and in the Aiel culture, that's the sign of a child. And then you have this whole, she leaves Emond's Field, undoes her hair to not be taken as a child, because everywhere else it's like a child. And it's this great honor in Emond's Field and the Two Rivers in general, and she's trying to escape that while she's out in the world. And maybe if she came back to the Two Rivers, she would braid it up because you know, cultural sensitivity or whatever. But in terms of like everywhere else, it's just this eye-opener where she's like, I don't really understand what you guys are doing, but it's not having the effect you think it's having.
Yeah, no, the relationship between those two is so fascinating to me, and it's just completely sacrificed for this like women supporting women thing. Like I'm so sick of 2023, no more women supporting
Which,
women.
you know
It's
what's funny
women
about the
challenging women. I want women to challenge each other
you know
again
what's
and
funny
make
about the women
themselves
supporting
better.
women? The
What's
women
that?
supporting women thing is men saying to Perrin, if you see the most beautiful woman in your life, run. It's
Yeah.
like, what? Like that's not supportive of women. Like that's the
Yeah,
complete opposite. That's literally saying,
I
"Hey,
know.
beautiful woman, run away." He's like,
Problematic.
parents literally like, "Why would I run away from a beautiful woman?" Like,
Uh,
it was like, well, we know she's not talking about Fail. Da-da-da-da!
oh, damn.
Oh,
Listen. The bird look, it's very fashionable in some
I know,
cultures.
right?
It's, you
Especially with that
know,
nose, man. That
yeah,
nose.
oh,
Whew.
she's got a honker. It's
Now,
great.
but here's the thing though, is like
Uh,
I'm not a Fail hater at all. Like I think
no,
that
she
I
had
think
good
that
near the end.
I think the story could have been a little bit better for her, but the whole like Saldean style of
Yeah.
relationships
Trailer trash
kind of
arguing. Yeah.
well, it's like
Bodice stripper. Yeah.
she's expecting him to know all this stuff. And it's
Yeah.
just like, I mean, not to be that guy, but stereotypical of men and women not understanding what men are thinking and men not understanding what women are thinking, just like, Jordan did. But it's like she's expecting him to understand Saldaea. He's never stepped foot in Saldaea. In the entire series, I don't think he once went to Saldaea. And like, let alone being there is different than being like, I understand and learned the culture. So then when she meets his or her dad, Davram, that's when Davram has to tell him what the heck is going on. And then they walk in on her and her mom ripping each other's hair out. It's like, this thing is the greatest thing ever because nobody knows what Perrin's thinking,
Meanwhile,
and Perrin has no idea
clearly
what they're thinking.
Perrin doesn't understand how he's supposed to make a move without the express consent of 20 to 30 moms and grandmas on the women's circle being
Or
like,
even
go
single
get her,
women.
tiger,
But yeah,
slapping him on the ass and being like, go get her. Like to
yeah.
him, he's like, how does this relationship function outside of like my context for what relationships look like?
Not
Whereas
to
she's
mention,
just like, what?
oh, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, not to mention the fact that his relationships with women basically being destroyed completely by
Oh,
having a fake wife early on in the
Jesus
series.
Christ. I just want to say that that element was so batshit crazy. Like the premise of accidentally murdering a spouse is like such a heavy load, like for a burden of a narrative to carry. Like the Wheel of Time show is like a dingy rowboat, and the burden like of a
That's an insult
narrative
to
of
rowboats,
accidentally
especially dinky
murdering a
ones.
spouse is like a full-blown like steel shipping container. They're trying to load a steel shipping container on like a dingy rowboat is what they're doing with like trying to put that narrative into like this show. It's wildly inappropriate. It makes no sense.
Well,
It's
I thought it was
batshit
funny
crazy.
because like they're saying, well, we're trying to make a traumatic experience for Perrin. I'm like, but why?
Jesus.
So that he like, I mean, it could be because they want him to leave the village. I'm like, he already has motivation to leave the village,
Mm-hmm. It's
so
almost like
that's
watching
not
your
useful.
village get destroyed is pretty traumatic, and then
Well,
later on,
not even village getting destroyed, but
or get
like
attacked.
seeing an impending attack come. Like
Yeah,
you see hundreds, if not thousands, of Trollocs come piling down with torches in the air.
yeah.
You're like,
No, that's nothing.
if they're gonna follow me and not harm my family, that's a pretty good inclination, which is what
Ugh,
the books did. It's like, hey,
yeah,
if we don't leave, they're gonna come back with more. So if you come with us, they'll follow us, and you'll be the only one in danger, not everybody else you care about. That was the
yeah.
whole point. And at that point, obviously, Perrin had his family still. So he had somebody to think about. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted to leave. They're like, well, we want him to think about violence versus not violence. I'm like, but that's not
That comes
applicable.
out in so many more effective ways, like more naturally throughout the rest of his narrative. It's like
Well,
they knew that these were his themes and they were trying to come up with a way to like shoehorn it in later or like earlier when
frigid
it's going
men.
to come out. Yeah, they're just like fridging. It's like,
It's
and
weak writing, is what
I
it
don't
is.
actually object to that as a trope. I actually think that the comic book where that term was coined was done pretty well. I don't find
Well, yeah, but that's
the
actually
trope.
a talented writer doing it. We don't
Yeah,
have those in the show,
yeah,
so.
exactly.
But
Yeah, but
that's the thing is like they're looking for reasons to traumatize him. I'm like, okay, by the time he needs to be traumatized, there are
mhm.
so many things he goes through that can traumatize him. But he's
Yeah, he's
also the
also
stoic, like emotionless one until he
thoughtful.
has to. He's
He needs
very
to be
thoughtful.
thoughtful. Yes.
Yeah, like he doesn't just willy-nilly do these things. So
Yeah.
having him be like, I'm the willy-nilly one who just slack jawed the entire time,
Mm.
literally and figuratively.
Literally doesn't know how to close his goddamn. He's got
Yeah.
Ray syndrome. He's got Daisy Ridley syndrome. I
Well,
wonder if those two are
they're
related.
both they're both fairly new actors, if I
Don't know how
recall
to close their
correctly. So,
fucking mouth. It's
but to be fair to Marcus Rutherford, I think that's just how they told him to be. Like,
they told him. Yeah,
I
fair
mean,
enough.
there's a thing about actors where I may not like them particularly in their performance, but it's not necessarily their fault. It's most of the time, if not all the time, the writer's fault. There's occasion
Yeah.
time where there's a random one-off actor or actress that doesn't know how to act, but the writers are responsible for the actions of the actor. So when the actor goes to act, they follow what the writers tell them to follow. So I can't put it completely on him, but his arc was just atrocious. Like
Yeah.
the
Back to
whole
the writing. The
the
whole
whole
like
the whole
yeah.
Tuatha on like peace versus violence, and you're
Jesus.
like, he went hard against the Tuatha
Yes.
on about violence and them not using
Absolutely.
it. Like
Ugh.
at the very least, it's like then run away. Don't just stand there and get butchered. Like you have to stop the evil at the bare minimum.
See, and
It
I always
doesn't
thought the
go
whole
away.
Tuathaon thing was like the question was like, do these people even have a place in society? Like, should we create a society where these people should exist? I don't think the initial question was like, are they correct? Where it seems like the show is definitely trying to be like, is pacifism the way? Whereas like,
Hey, these homeless people don't have any place to go. Where should
yeah,
we put them? But that's
I don't
the other
even
thing
think
is
that was
that
the question.
like if Robert Jordan hadn't like, and this is kind of the relationship between, I just kind of like connect the two, the relationship between Perrin and the Tuatha. If the Tuatha were not looking for the song, there's no reason for them to be traveling like crazy.
Mm,
None. So that would make sense. Like, part of me thinks that that's the reason Robert Jordan gave them that thing. It's like, here, this is who you are. Go do this thing. And they're like, well, this is a never ending thing until we find it. And like, yeah, I know. So go do that. And then
mhm.
that's what they go do. They travel everywhere, all over the continent.
Yeah.
Sometimes they lose some of them. Sometimes they gain some of them. Sometimes they're attacked by white cloaks. But and
Sometimes
it's
they
like,
have a sexy women dancing in front of a fire and
I
gives Karen his
mean,
first, you know.
I don't know any guys who complain about that, but that's a different
Mhm.
story. But
Well, that's for the male gaze. We had to cut that from the show, but
not the
yeah.
male
The
gaze.
male gaze, no.
I mean, and it's not like any woman wants to be desired or anything.
No, no, I
That's
hate that shit. Oh
I,
my
I
god.
hate I
Oh,
hate when guys look at me and be like, "Man,
ugh.
she looks good."
God,
Like,
oh no, no, it's terrible. I'm gonna shrivel up and die.
you're sitting over there with the cross going, "Stay back,
It's not,
vampires!"
it's not like it makes my entire day and I feel like I'm like walking on air all day when I get a compliment. No, no, I wither
It's
up
not
and
like
die.
women put on 7 pounds of cake on their face every single day to look attractive for guys or
No, what are you talking
anything.
about?
They don't do that. That's not a
No,
thing.
that's literally never happened.
There's not entire marketing industries that do that. Like, I
Or
don't
the
know what you're
entire
talking about.
self-made millionaires online who
It's
just do it.
totally
Yeah.
because they want to look good for themselves, not for other
It's an
people. Don't
art
that's not a
form.
thing.
Yeah, it's art. It's self-expression. Yeah,
Because
no.
girls love to wake up in the morning, put 10 pounds of makeup on their face to like not leave the house and then take it off before they go to
Yeah,
bed.
exactly. Yeah, it's the Amber Heard thing. It's like, yeah,
Oh gosh.
even at home, I wear it. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna go back to Nynaeve. I also really enjoyed the like hatred that she had towards Moraine. I absolutely loved that. And it was really toned down in the show. And there were a bunch of reasons for it. Moraine had the man she loved, which that's very problematic. We can never have that in the show. Moraine could,
Well, it creates a relational tension because
yeah,
this other woman has what she wants.
yes,
Even though that want grows over time, it wasn't
yes.
instantaneous, which is
And
nice.
that other woman has the respect of the village. Well, Nynaeve was, they were always saying she was too young to be the wisdom, whereas Moraine walks into town and everyone's immediately like scared and respectful of her. She doesn't have a block, so she can and this manifests later. Obviously, Moraine can do, weave as she wills, and obviously Nynaeve has the block, and she's got a place where she belongs. Whereas Nynaeve's whole arc is how she, feels out of place in the Two Rivers, out of place in the White Towers, kind of finds a place for herself with the Valkyrie, and with Rand and doing Destiny shit and stuff, but they seem to boil it down in the show to like this weird sort of white privilege thing. Unlike the world building in the book, where like an Aes Sedai could literally like tie a young girl up if she could, channel even remotely and bring her to the White Tower.
Drag her thousands of leagues.
Yes.
To just go
apparently in the show they're just turning away poor people. Like poor women just aren't allowed in the White Tower.
Isn't that what you do? Like, I mean, what's wrong with you?
It's buck wild that like there was this like complex reason why Nynaeve hates Moraine, and like there's a bunch of them, but in the show they just sort of boil it down to like this weird like the White Tower turns away people like me, and turns into this weird like kind of white privilege like class thing. I don't know. It was just like very.
Well, it's like saying they're trying to get the show to say that the people in power hate poor people.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the people in power without poor people don't have anyone to be powerful over.
Yeah, so, and first of all, it's hilarious whenever Amazon makes a statement like that. That's genuinely hilarious.
And well, that's one of the things that is actually kind of a tricky thing about it, is that it's not necessarily Amazon who's saying that, because well, look at the different shows. They've had some successful shows like Reacher, Invincible, to some extent The Boys, Terminalist. Like all these are really successful, but also most of them are based. I think The Boys kind of went a little off the rails.
I was gonna say The Boys hasn't been based
since the first season, from what I understand.
First season, maybe, yeah.
But Invincible's been based. Terminalist has been based. Reacher's been based with a couple like one or two scenes.
Yeah.
But it was so minimal. It was like hardly even there.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would never call Reacher woke. I really adored Reacher.
It wasn't. It had like a line in it. It's like, I'm a woman, and it's like,
yeah.
I'm like, he could literally just pick you up with one hand and slam you on the ground, and that's game over. So I don't like the whole concept was silly, but it's the studios. They use different studios.
Yeah.
For different programs, so these different programs are going to give different results. So Rafe's basically
Amazon still has an overview, like overall creative control. Like they have strict standards for their casting and certain like content.
Well, they're awfully picky and choosy about they're following their own rules. But
yeah, true that.
In terms of like the actual studios, like if you had a studio that like worked on Terminalist and Reacher working on this, they would still probably end up doing what Rafe said, because Amazon, from an executive perspective, is looking at it more from money. They don't necessarily watch the episodes. They don't necessarily look at over the feed. They don't necessarily have a watchdog. They probably should, but they don't have a watchdog watching Rafe or any of their showrunners, because they have wild successes and wild failures all over the place. And it's like
I don't mean to imply that like the Wheel of Time is like a public statement Amazon is making directly. I just, as a publishing
house, it's a showrunner public statement. I think that them using it while working for Amazon's more ironic than Amazon being the direct cause. Amazon's not necessarily Disney.
Amazon renders the point hypocritical. Amazon's involvement utterly undercuts the entire class message that they were trying to send there.
But Disney's more like directly like, let's burn our own ship while we're still standing in it, because that's just Disney.
That's just cultural vandalism at that point, is what that is.
It's Disney self-destruction.
Yeah.
Self-imploding. But yeah, like that, I don't want to say it's necessarily Amazon, because Amazon, and I'm not necessarily a fan of Bezos and Amazon in general, but in terms of like true blame, I don't think it necessarily goes in their court per se. It still could, but I have seen more things based upon the studios and how it works. And maybe you can ask your brother, because Alex probably has a lot more production thing per studio knowledge than I do. I wouldn't doubt it. but from what I've read and heard from people who are in the film industry, like Midnight's Edge or Film Threat and stuff like that, they're talking about like it's the studios that work on different things, and which studio you have working with you is going to heavily influence the kind of mentality of cultural significance, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I would agree to an extent. However, I do know that Amazon does impose things about like
They
casting,
claim to, but
diversity.
whether they
There's
follow it is a different story.
yeah. So okay, but I think that's sort of a murky area where it's like it's impossible to know one way or another. But
Yeah,
either way, the whole
I just don't want to point it at Amazon when it might not be Amazon directly. Like the shareholders don't necessarily care as long as they get paid, and Bezos, from what I understand, just wants them to bring him popularity, fame, and fortune. He's
yeah.
not necessarily going in there saying, "All right, Rafe, I need you to add all the woke stuff."
No, no, and
Like,
I didn't mean to imply that. I'm saying, if
yeah,
anything, Rafe's message is undercut by the fact that his
yeah,
show is,
it's definitely ironic.
yes. So, but yeah, no, I don't think Robert Jordan really gets enough credit for writing so many long stretches of his ongoing narrative centered around the Wonder Girls, around his like female characters bouncing off of each other, sometimes women supporting women, sometimes women challenging women, sometimes women like absolutely wrecking women. um and I can actually go back and forth with this with House of the Dragon, because they do have some of that as well as like some of the pandering stuff too. Again, it's hard to say, it gets murky, but House of the Dragon has been good for basically having two female characters going head to head, but also we have to put in those moments of like, your life is still being controlled by men. Like, why would that character say that in that context? Like, there's all
To
sorts
be
of stuff like
fair,
that.
I haven't watched House of the Dragon
You
yet,
haven't watched House of the
so
Dragon? Oh no. Okay, well,
yeah, it's fine. I've pretty much seen several like reviews on it and stuff.
mhm.
I
Sort
was
of
never
riding that
big into.
YouTube hate machine. I love it.
I'm not saying really hate machine, but it's more of
I love the hate machine. You got
I,
to get
I'm
on
going
it.
I'm going to be the hot takes person now and to say I wasn't really ever big into Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I thought the first season was highly accurate as an adaptation,
very
even
good.
even for all the bad stuff. But um, I find George R. R. Martin's writing to be highly repetitive.
Oh yeah.
It's murder, backstab, politics, murder,
Oh
backstab,
dude.
politics, and that's literally all it is
See,
all the time.
we kind of
It's
talked about this, how like
yeah,
we
Arya's is the
Arya's
best
journey. Arya is best girl, obviously, but like when Arya was traveling across the
book.
continent,
Aria, just to
book
point that out.
Arya. Oh yeah, no, show Arya is barely recognizable. She's a Mary Sue. She's basically Rey from Star Wars. But it like that journey that like various characters take going across the continent, and like basically every person they meet is like a backstabber, a murderer, a horrible monster, evil. And then contrast that to like the journey that Matt and Rand took, where like sometimes these people they met were good and charitable, sometimes they were just people trying to live their lives and just sort of
And sometimes they were
self-interested.
basic, normal, bad people, and then other
Yeah,
times they're extremely bad, dark
yeah, they
friends.
were dark friends. There was that variety, so it wasn't boring. It wasn't just everything is grimdark, just like George R. R.
Well, and
Martin
there
tends
was
to do.
also the quote unquote good dark friends, like
Yeah,
the ones that are like in the alleys teaching the children about the great wonders of the dark one,
yeah,
even though they're like not actively like killing people or something. Like they're not
yeah,
doing bad things, but they're like they're the less
yeah.
bad dark friends, which is funny.
It
But
just seemed like there was, I think you and I agree that there was a
there's
much
variety.
greater variety of sort of the different people and the way that they would behave when interacting with the POV characters relative to the George R. R. Martin, where it's just like everything is grimdark always. And
And I'm not even necessarily against grim dark. It's just it was not like there was no variety. It was just constant. And I was
yeah,
like, I want character development. I want like how do you develop a character if they literally experience the same thing over and over again? Like it's never any different. It's like
yeah,
you have any of the I'm trying to remember all the names of all the houses and stuff. The North guys.
the
the
Starks
winter
or
the Starks, yes. So you have the Stark family. They're like, let's go to these places. we know everybody's backstabbers, betrayers, so we're gonna go hang out with them after we screwed them over. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, I don't know, a red wedding. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Did you think, like, are you that naive? And then it's like, okay, the next person, let's not learn our lesson. Let's do it again. It's just like, are you serious? And it's like the most common recurring thought to them is always, let's go do more stupid stuff and blab our mouths everywhere to all these people, because absolutely no one is listening to me, and no one's going to totally take that to the bad guys and then, you know, make my life just end.
Yeah,
So
no.
it's just,
like
it's a
I said,
constant
I had
repetitive.
that very surreal moment where like I totally read all of, you know, the entire Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire. And so I was
You
so
poor
kind of used
soul.
to that. That was my context for high fantasy outside of Tolkien. And those two are so totally removed. It's hard to associate them. But so like when I was reading Wheel of Time for the first time, I was expecting a setting more similar to A Song of Ice and Fire. And so when like people weren't always monsters and grimdark every time, I was like genuinely shocked. I was like, oh wow, yeah, I guess they would meet, like maybe the fifth farmer they met on the road would give them a ride. You know, it was just a more authentic sort of experience. And
Well,
I really appreciated
it
that.
gives you a realistic look into how these kind of backwater territories actually are, where when you get into cities, people are more distrustful. When you get
Yeah.
outside of cities, they're more trustful. It's just,
And importantly
that's
too,
nature of humanity. And it's like, that's not saying something one which way or the other. It's just saying, when you push people together, like in a big city center, that's just the default end up location. You could have good-hearted people in a city, they just either don't last long or they're slowly broken down over time, like, and
well, yeah, and the
they
stress of
move
living
or
in close
leave or
proximity
something.
with so many people causes, you know, a breakdown of psyche. If you ever like, I forget what the actual experiment was called. It was called like the rat experiment, where they created the simulation where these rats would live together, and they always had enough materials, they always had enough food. The only thing that's limited was space. And it still drove them crazy. There was never starvation. There was never, you know, a
Yep.
limited on nesting resources, but just being in close proximity with a lot of people, like in a city, drove them crazy, because like they just weren't meant to be so close to so many other, you know, people or so many other rats, you know. I think that
It's almost like having two medium-sized cities is better than one massive city.
yeah, it's crazy, right? Okay, but that was a whole aside. But yeah,
Yeah.
no. So, but yeah, the and what I was gonna say is like I think that the Robert Jordan approach is so important, because when when heroes are going out to fight for the world, I like to know that there's good people in it. Whereas like sometimes when we get to, you know, George R. R. Martin, we're talking about saving the realm and stuff. I'm like, fuck, you know, I'm like, the realm can burn. Everyone in the realm is a
The
jerk.
realm's not worth saving, so why
Yeah,
would I care about it?
exactly. Yeah. Whereas like you think back to the people in, you know, the Wheel of Time, and you're like, yeah, I do want that farmer that helped them
Well,
along the way to be okay. I want him to get, you know, a
or
good
at the
harvest.
beginning, I'm trying to remember which book it was, because again, I'm not good at like keeping track of the books, but I remember the story, and I just
Oh,
remember like the farmer that had issues with their orchard and stuff,
the
and then
orchard. Oh God,
the
yeah, I know exactly what you're
Rand
talking about.
shows up and is just like,
Zen
"Hey, I'll just
Rand.
fix this for you real quick," and it's
Zen
just like,
Rand
ah.
fixed everything. Yeah, just
And you're
Jesus
just
up on them. It was
like
great.
this guy is just like, man, everything's going wrong. This like my people that I have hired, my hirelings and stuff,
Hmm.
they don't have anything to do because the crops are terrible. Everything's rotting, everything's
Yeah.
dying, it's not growing, everything's going to crap. And what are we gonna do about it? And then this random stranger walks up and is like, hey, by the way, I'm just gonna fix this for you. Oh,
Yeah.
by the
And it
way,
was,
you're gonna need a lot of baskets and a lot of help. Go get your whole like city, your village, or whatever is nearby. You're gonna need all of them. And then
yeah, that felt
they
great.
go into like, I don't believe it, go grab everybody. And then that's what happens. And it's like, that's refreshing because you get to see these
It's a
people who
very
are,
cathartic and satisfying moment, because we got
well,
to see those people, we got to see what they went through, and we
these
got to know they were
innocent
worth
people
saving. Yeah.
that didn't have any like, that they didn't have a stake in anything. They're just like, I'm here out minding my own business. I
Hmm.
got to provide for my family. That's my priority. Not these
Yeah.
city slickers who are like, I'm gonna go gamble my life away. Woo! Like that's not what they were doing. Like these are people that are relatable to those who are. I mean, I suppose the city slicker could relate to some extent. Like
Yeah, but,
this person's coming across hard times, and all of a sudden it's flipped in their favor, and
mhm.
they can be like relaxed knowing that life's not going to collapse around them. That's something that anyone from any background can relate to in some shape or form, and
It
we just don't
reminds
get
me
that in the
of
stories.
that moment in Fellowship when the hobbits and they just picked up Aragorn and they're like, oh no, the ponies got released from the inn and the ponies wandered away, and how are they gonna complete their journey now without the ponies? And then Tolkien just like took a little paragraph to be like, hey guys, just so you know, the ponies came back, they ran into Tom Bombadil, and they were reunited, and the innkeeper didn't lose any money because of it, and he wound up okay. Because damn
Yeah.
it, like Tolkien recognized that this world doesn't just belong to the high kings, it belongs to the little people too. And these are the things that matter, you know? I think that's like a little bit of a spectrum there
Well,
where, you
and
know,
a Robert Jordan comparison is when the inn in Barelon they're staying, the Stag and Lion, I believe is what it's called.
mhm.
When it gets burned down, they're
Oh,
like,
I
"Why
love
aren't
that
you
scene.
helping? Why aren't you helping?" And she's like, "I can do more for him by not going back right now, and also more for the mission and the quest, which is what I'm here for to begin with, which is you guys. I can do more for us by leaving, sending him untraceable gold, and then he can build that thing over 5 times, and he'll be set for life essentially by
Yeah.
what I can do for him. But I'm not going to go in and cause a commotion, especially when I caused a commotion to get out. I'm not
Was
going to
that
go back in.
was that the
And
one where like Rand was like clutching the dragon banner and it was like singed and like
no,
Loyal was clutching his
no,
books? No, that
no.
was a different inn that burned
Oh,
down.
there's yeah, this is that was
I'm thinking of like Hunt for the
that was the
Horn.
one in Kyrian. You're thinking in book 2. I'm thinking
Yeah, I'm
book
thinking
1.
of Hunt for the Horn. Okay.
Barrelon, when they meet Min and everything, she was
Oh,
at
yes,
Stag
that's
and
right.
Lion, and then
Gotcha.
when they're leaving, Moraine uses uh the mists or the illusion of mist or whatever,
Yeah, and makes herself all,
and
yeah.
makes herself huge, like she steps over the
That's
wall
the
even though she
one,
just
yeah.
walked. Like she makes a racket, but Dark Friends or the White Cloaks or whoever burns down the inn, and the kids from Emmons Field are like, "Why aren't you helping? Why aren't you helping?" And she's like, "I can do more for him by leaving,
Mhm.
and then I can send him things." Which is repairing the relationship. Like, for one, the innkeeper's not gonna know that it was her that was the reason it gets burned down.
Mhm.
2, he had a really excellent relationship with her already because this is the second time. She's already come through once, built up some sort of a repertoire with her or with him, and they left, and then now they're coming back, and he still thinks highly of her and thinks she's a fine lady. Doesn't
Mhm.
even know who she is, but thinks she's a fine lady. And now that his place is being burned down, as far as he's concerned, it's just arsonists or people stirring up trouble.
He doesn't
And
have to be scared of the, oncoming
yeah,
threat. He
he's
doesn't
he
have to carry that burden.
he has no idea what's going on. But she's like, I can send him gold to build the thing 5 times over, make it twice as big, 3 times as big, and he'll be way further ahead than he is now, despite him
Mhm.
losing everything he has. So I'll fix it. But right now, my priority is you guys, and I just kind of, caused a commotion. So going
Yeah.
back is kind of counterintuitive. So it makes sense how she wants to do things, which is similar to that. Is like, oh, Tom Bombadil found the ponies. He got the ponies back where they needed to go. Like, things will happen in a good way for those who are, good. Like, that's the general message of that. And then pretty much anyone can relate to that. Like, you help somebody down the road with something with their car, and then your car's having problems, they come by and they help pick you up. Like, it's just the basic one-to-one helping each other, and that for it's like
Yeah.
it's a basic thing every reader can relate to in some shape or form. But
Exactly. Yeah.
in terms of like parent to the Tuathon and all that stuff, like the correlation they're trying to pull, I have no idea what that's going on, because they're trying to make it like he's actually considering the way of the leaf, which in the book he would never consider.
No.
He likes the idea of peace, but he
Yeah.
realizes the reality of evil.
Yep.
And
It's very funny too that like in that moment of stress when like he should be doing just like literally anything, he's like, the way of the leaf doesn't, didn't account for this, and like it's like, Perrin, you're so worthless. You didn't do anything in this scene. You let Pot and Fane roll up over and like kill Loyal. Like you shouldn't even be considering this as a thought right now. You're just, oh, it's so like, why did they decide that was like the central, like the way of the leaf was going to
the
be his
reason is
character?
that the only thing Perrin can kill is his wife.
Gosh, yeah. The only thing Rand can kill is himself,
Well, I mean, if they
He
do us
didn't
that
even manage
favor,
that.
yeah, I was gonna say he failed horribly and didn't even do us the pleasure.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I'm just saying, yeah. Man, it's frustrating. Did Matt kill anyone, or was that like a dream?
Matt killed, or they try to set it up like Matt killed somebody.
Yeah.
Like they wanted to make it seem like Matt was controlled by the dagger and
Which is
murdered the farm
highly
family.
objectionable. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the character assassination of the highest order in that regard.
I had a whole rant
But
about this. Yeah.
well, I had probably like a week long rant.
I literally like
Of just
texted
like
Alex and
anything.
was like, I'm not going to be on this episode of the rewatch with you guys, so I need you to, when she says he has inherent darkness, I need you to read this like 5-paragraph rant. Okay,
I need you to just like end this, like just end them. Just
I was literally
take it to
Dooku, like,
task.
let the hate flow through you. Like, I was,
Do it.
do it. Yeah. Oh. But
Palpatine.
yeah, no, I was just trying to, we were going down the list of ineffectual males. But yeah, no, Nynaeve killed a Trolloc because that is,
Navy SEAL style, no
yeah,
less.
that is her thing, is wielding weapons and, hurting people. That's what she loves to do. She loves inflicting physical harm on people with weapons. That's not like something that enrages her. It's not like that's something that, deeply upsets her. That's, she's all about, do you see she gets a sword fight in the next season? She's fighting with a sword.
Yeah, I saw that. Not sure how I want to see that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna obviously force myself to because I hate my life.
Yeah. No, see, here's my fear. Here's my tinfoil hat theory. So in that like little clip, she's got her sword, and there's 2 guys there who also have swords and armors. Like, are they going to give her Matt's Gawain and Galad fight? Yes or no? What do you think?
From what I've seen, it looks like it's Alana's warders, but it could hypothetically be Galad and Gawain. I don't know. I think they have Gawain casted. I don't know if Galad's been casted.
Ooh,
I don't remember because I kind of tried to forget it, block it out of my
I got
mind.
you.
But I remember seeing the scene. It's 2 guys versus her, the completely untrained, non-existent skilled woman in the
Mhm.
ways of the sword, and she's just like beating the snot out of them, which is funny because in one of the parts the guy totally had her back wide open. He could have just chopped her to
Just
pieces.
chopped her in half right
But it's
there. Yeah.
like this is literally like that scene is classic Rings of Power Galadriel versus Numenor
Oh,
trainees. That's literally what it was, and it was
yeah.
bad. It was bad.
I hate that shit. I'm like almost scared for like this generation of girls who like don't, maybe are out of touch and they don't realize the massive strength differential that's like inherent
Well,
in
it's
our
not about that
species.
because people think that because it's fantasy, anything goes, and like that's not how fantasy works.
No, but like I'm
Like,
saying, it's in everything. Like it's even in media that's supposed to be more grounded. That
well, yeah, but like
a tiny, anorexic
Reacher had the little sheriff girl who's just like, yeah, I'm gonna just throw a guy's like 3 times my weight right over
little
my shoulders.
tiny
Like, woo.
anorexic girl is beating up Navy SEAls, and I'm just like worried that there's going to be some girls out there who are like, yeah, I can fight this guy who's way bigger than me, and then they're
They're
going
gonna
to
go
like get
hunt down the
murdered.
nearest Navy SEAL bar and just freaking try
Yeah,
to take people on.
yeah. I'm worried that they're going to like widely
Uh,
overestimate their like physical abilities. It's like kind of concerning. I'm like, man, talk about unrealistic standards for women. That's like, they expect me to be able to fight a Navy SEAL. That's way too much.
all right, and what else about Nynaeve's relationship did you find intriguing?
Oh yeah, so I kind of talked a little bit about this on the Women's Circle stream over on the White Cloaks, but just we talked a lot about how one of the more like, I guess, talked about the buzzier like moments of that first season of Wheel of Time is obviously that the relationship between Nynaeve and Lan obviously had a very different sort of pace to it. Obviously, in the books, this is something that just sort of fizzled under the surface for a long, long time, kind of built up over time, whereas literally they were just DTF right away in the show. And they just like had a hookup, and then Lan just sort of pumped and dumped and walked off. And then it was just this, it was terrible. Whereas like in the books, that moment when she finally gets the man she wants was like so powerful, because it was, first of all, she got married, so there was none of this like,
Hold on. Don't you know marriage is a social construct that was totally made by white people?
It's a patriarchal institution meant to oppress and commodify women. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that. Yeah, but no, like, so she got married. She like.
I can tell you have never been married. Just saying.
Damn. Wow, call me out. Damn. Just because you got your happy trad wife doesn't mean you can come flex on other people. That's rude.
Well, I mean, actually, that's the only area I can flex on people.
Damn. Fucking here to flex on all the incels. Damn. Okay. But yeah, no. So it's.
I'm sure your brothers loved you before, so you can't be an incel.
What's that?
I said, I'm sure your brothers loved you. You can't be an incel by definition, then.
I don't think you know what that word means, but anyway.
Well, from what I understand, incel is just a person who's never received love or been loved. Maybe you have the Urban Dictionary version of it, but that's the version I've heard. But then again, I am old, so that means. What did you just
say to me right now? Wow. Okay. Shit. Okay. Let's get back to Wheel of Time, shall we? Okay.
I'm just saying, your brothers loved you. Like, he loves you, your sister.
No, it's literally involuntary celibate is what incel stands for.
Oh.
What the fuck?
because no one's ever loved you. You didn't have an option. That's
involuntary celibate is what that word means. Dude. Oh my god.
I'm an old boomer. Leave me alone.
Wow. That was... Okay, anyway, back to Wheel of Time. Jesus Christ. Okay. So, yeah, just suffice to say, in the book, it was this really cool, empowering moment where Nynaeve breaks her block, gets married, gets the dude, walks away, total, queen, absolutely empowered, total badass. And like
grows from it too.
Like, she's a totally different person. She wears a bindi on her face after that. Like, she's embraces sort of the Malkiri culture and finds kind of her place in the world. And whereas in the book, again, it's just like this weird sloppy hookup, and then it just sort of means nothing. And it's such a shame. Because again, we basically just sacrificed like one of the best moments in the book for just sort of this like, yes, queen, get it, like casual hookup.
Well, one of the things that really bothered me about it, because one of my favorite parts about Lan and Nynaeve in the first book is when they're literally sitting amongst the ruins of the Seven Towers, and they have that like heart-to-heart moment where Lan's like, I mean, we've been together for months. We've grown somewhat of an attraction towards each other. She's making eyes at him. He's making eyes at her. But he's also the stoic, and he's like, look, I can't give you what you deserve. And all I have is, a broken crown and a sword and a war that I can never give up on. And you deserve better. And he basically like tells her gently that like, this is going to work out. And then she just like breaks from that, and it's a great scene. And they just completely obliterate any chance or hope of that ever happening, which builds up some romantic / relational,
some
like
yearning.
Relational,
yearning. That's a good romance to get some yearning.
Well, it's a well-developed relationship as opposed to just like, let's just like make eyes at each other and hop in the sack. What could possibly go wrong?
It's so boring. Yeah, they just like, they liked each other and they hopped in the sack, and then nothing came of it.
At the very least, they hopped in the sack. Freaking Egwene and Rand did it in the freaking kitchen. Like, what the heck?
like on the archery yard. Yeah, it was.
That's sanitary. That's
That
how
was
plagues
gross.
start, yo.
I was gonna say that inn. I don't know if I want to go to the Elvira Inn anymore. No, thank you. Yeah, but yeah, no. So I was a little annoyed that they absolutely destroyed that
Just a little bit.
moment.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, and then you know what? I wanted to know if you picked up on this because there was a scene directly after that where Egwene walks into Nynaeve's room and discovers that she hadn't slept in her bed that night, and she's all like, "Tee hee, oh my gosh!" Like
Somebody got lucky last night.
yeah, so that's how I know that like this wasn't like authentically coming from a woman because like I feel like that's the dude's perspective of like, oh man, my bro didn't make it home last night.
Okay,
He must have got
now you're mistaken. There are definitely no male writers in this squad.
I'm thinking this is like gay man Rafe Junkins. Like no, because like even the most
Junkins.
Rafe yeah, Ray. This is Rafe because like the most slagged out like LA thought like would look at like her roommate, you know, in a strange city surrounded by danger and be like, oh, my roommate didn't make it home last night. That's not like
worrisome.
a yes girl, get it. That's like a holy fuck. Like, or well, I shouldn't swear, sorry. That's like a whole like, oh my god, are you okay?
That's that point.
Are you yeah, no, I sorry. Like
You're
that
fine,
is like, are you okay? Are you in someone's van? Are you at the bottom of a river? Like, do you need help? Are you at the hospital? Like there's like girl code. You don't discover your roommate didn't make it home last night.
There's a man code for that even.
Yeah,
like
that was
I know we can't talk about that because you know guys are patriarchal and obviously not
yeah.
gentlemen, but yeah.
That was so inauthentic to me. I'm like, no young lady would be in like a strange place she's never been before, surrounded by danger on all sides, and then like her friend didn't make it home and be like, ha ha ha, Teehee must have gotten laid last night. No, she'd be like, oh my god, are you okay? Like that, it was just very inauthentic to me. I was like that.
I think she would be half terrified to like turn around, see Nynaeve come through the door in like torn clothes and being like bloodied eye and bloody nose, and like that's what she would be expecting. Not like, oh, somebody got lucky.
It was just like a weird moment. I'm like, that is so like no human acts like that. Like again,
let alone trad women from a countryside.
Yeah, no, I even think that you know, the most thoughted up you know slag in LA would be like, oh my roommate didn't make it home last night. I'm concerned. Like that seems like because we're all drilled into our head.
Like even like women to like some girlhood level, at least as far as I can tell, girls have this thing where, I mean, I know they really way overdid it in She-Hulk, where it's like, oh, she's got in a car accident, she goes into this tavern or bar place and then goes to the bathroom, and then a bunch of women come in with makeup and freaking so like turn her into a whore and then let her loose outside because that's how you do it. But jeez. Like at least the sentiment of like girls coming around someone who's struggling or whatnot, like in a real situation, if girls came across that girl in the bathroom, they'd be like, all right, we're gonna like guard you and we'll get you out of here and get you some help.
Her alone. They would have
they would not have left her alone. They wouldn't have freed her up and then thrown her on the street,
parted her up and put her alone on a street corner. That's like the opposite of what you should.
You look like you've been raped or something. Let me put you in more clothes so you can go out in the lonely dark and get raped again. That doesn't make sense.
Caked the makeup on her and then left her alone. That was the wildest thing I've like. That made no sense. But yeah, the wheel of time.
Guys can look at that and say that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
like, but you'd expect the women to be like, let me call up my brother and my cousin and you know blah 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 blah, and then they're gonna come here and then they're gonna teach that guy a lesson. Like that's what they would be doing, not like, oh, let me pretty you up and send you on your way.
See, no, like I even like, you know, I've experienced something kind of like that, and it was just sort of like, let me make sure you get home. Like, do you need to throw up? Like, are you good? But it wasn't like there was no applying makeup or giving her new clothes. It was literally just like a, are you good situation. Like, and that the girls in that show didn't even make sure she was good.
It's just checking on your mental and physical well-being. That's literally what the basic of it.
Yeah.
The basic level of human decency you could
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that, but I'm like, in the real world, they'd at least check on you. They'd be like, is
Mm.
everything okay? Do I have to call the cops? Do
Yeah.
you
Like,
have
you
someone
look
coming to
like
pick you
you
up? Like,
yeah, do I need
what's
to call
going
an
on?
ambulance? Like, what's up? Like, are you gonna start having a seizure right now?
Do I
Yeah.
need to go throw a brick at someone's head? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, yeah, maybe that, yeah.
So
But
that might be a little bit extreme, but I mean the basic concept is that at least women would not treat each other like trash,
yeah,
and they would think beyond the, oh, you just had a bad makeup day, we need to fix that. Like, no,
yeah,
like
no.
clearly something can be a problem.
Yeah.
And Egwene has none of that for Nynaeve.
No,
Like
it's
they're
bizarre.
like sisters who are pining after different guys, and then when they get lucky, they can like sit in the corner and giggle with each other. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we got lucky in the kitchen. Well, we got lucky in his bed, and like one upping each other. I'm like, what are you guys, frat boys? What the heck?
Dude. And like, could you imagine in the context of like the book where it was considered controversial and like kind of saucy that the wisdom was dancing? Like she was just dancing like a
No, like
casual festival dance.
nobody
Like,
could like understand that, let alone when, I mean, heck, even seeing an Aes Sedai dance, like when Moraine jumped
ooh,
in,
yeah.
their eyes nearly blew out of their faces. Like,
Yeah,
what
no,
just
and
happened?
then consider the relationship where Egwene kind of is like considers Nynaeve this fuddy-duddy who bosses her around, who she's trying to kind of one up. Like that would be blackmail gold. She would never let that go. She would be telling everybody. She'd be giving her shit for that.
Yeah, but at
She'd
the
be
same
like
time,
living
I
there.
think that Nynaeve would have a fair decent amount of dirt
She,
on Egwene,
yeah,
considering
that's
she
true.
watched her raise up. So
Yeah, no, but like consider how Egwene acted when Nynaeve just like lied to her. She was like, "You have to drink the bitter tea, ha ha ha," and like she was so thrilled, like a weird sociopathic thrill that to have finally gotten one up on Nynaeve, and so
and
like,
then kind of felt bad about the ship when she has to
yeah,
throw up. She's like,
yeah,
oh, maybe now's not the right time to do that.
yeah,
But
exactly.
even then, like, I feel like if Nynaeve even got a hint or a whiff of Egwene and Aram, oh boy,
Oh my God, yeah, that would be
like
a
they'd be
catastrophe.
like, wait, you have Rand and you just went over some other dude. Not to mention the whole potentiality with Perrin, which
Oh,
that
see, that's a good
like,
transition, actually. Can you
oh
like
gosh,
consider the fact that we completely sacrificed Rand's beautiful like inner struggle, like crisis of identity over the fact that he discovered he's adopted. As stupid as it was, he probably should have figured he's an NBA-sized ginger, but like he genuinely
this dude
struggled,
looks like nobody here
but
except
still,
Kari. Kari was a redhead, from what I understand, but
yeah,
that was like sheer luck. So I think the
yeah,
reason nobody questioned his hair color was because of Kari, and Kari's
sorry,
an outsider. So like
yeah,
it's expected
it
that
was
he would
fine,
look like that. But then
yeah,
again, it's like Kari's probably like half his height,
yeah,
if that, and you're like,
yeah.
well, you don't have Tam's height. You're well past that point. So,
Mm. Mm.
hmm.
But yeah, no, I actually found it pretty profound and interesting, like the way Rand struggled with his identity after discovering he was adopted. And all that was cut out, and that really sucks. But you know what they did have time for? A shitty young
Steppin'.
adult. Yeah, Stefan for sure. But yeah, the love triangle, the literal Twilight young adult love triangle with Rand, the werewolf boy, and the girl that everyone likes for no reason. Like
Except
they
in this case,
literally.
it's the werewolf boy making eyes at Rand.
Oh gosh, see that's the other question too.
I
No, but
mean, we have to deter all of our, attention away from the guy who didn't want to be gay, so he killed himself.
oh, that was crazy.
That was the biggest cell phone I've ever seen in
I've
my
never
life.
seen anything like that. That was
I
like
don't
he
think
didn't even
anybody
know
would
what
have
to do.
tried to even think that. Like, no one
I
else
couldn't
would have
even
come up
write
with that.
that. If someone gave me a pen and was like, write the most like homophobic parody episode of Wheel of Time, I'd be like, first of all, weird. Second of all, like, okay, I couldn't even write something like that. Are you kidding
Be
me?
like, I'm totally gonna get an F on this, and like the worst thing you come up with is like 10 times better than that.
Seriously, wow, gosh, like that was crazy.
Just like no self-awareness at all.
Absolutely. And then consider the fact that like maybe they could have had it be one of Alana's warders, and that's why she, you know, explained some of her actions later. And it's just like we could have done anything in that time. It's really
They
the
could have just left out the whole gay warder
gay warder
relationship
thing.
concept
Yeah.
because it's not necessary. And they're not even like big players. Like they're not main characters that were like,
Oh,
let's
they
go
even
see
had
their relationship. We want to see what they have
yeah,
together, because in the books they were not like that at all.
no,
They were very much just guard dogs for Alana that
yeah,
individually had relations with Alana. Or was
yeah.
that Alana or was that somebody else?
I
Was that
think it was
Alana?
someone else. I think Alana came later, but
No, that was that Marielle?
Marielle
The
could
one,
have been
I think that's Marielle who Lan eventually goes over to, because Marielle had
briefly.
two warders and she slept with both of her warders,
And
but
Lan.
not at the same time. And then
Yeah.
eventually she slept with Lan to try to coax him out of
She
Moraine's
tried
bond
to,
and everything.
yeah, fuck the
Yeah,
depression out of him. Yeah. 'Cause that's how that
literally.
works.
But
Yeah.
yeah, well, this is like she's trying to give him something else to attach to, and he just wasn't having it. And then
Yeah.
as soon as they're like, "Yeah, you go get Nynaeve," he's like, "I'll be there in
Bye.
5 minutes."
Bye.
Like, good. And it's
Yeah.
like boom, he had something, and
He
then
had
when
someone to live
obviously
for.
they actually get bonded together, everything's all good
Mhm.
and dandy. It
Yeah,
helps
no.
that Moraine's not dead, but that's the thing.
I wonder why this show never caught all the shit for fridging the gay character. You know, or, no, I guess they didn't fridge the gay character, so it's fine. But
Well, actually, they did in a way. Like they fridged
oh,
him, so we got an emotional rise out of Lan, and we got to see
yeah,
tweaking nipples. So we wouldn't have gotten that without the
yeah.
fridging.
And then like think about how worthless that is, because that funeral, that death had absolutely no impact on his like journey throughout the rest of the season. Like I don't
I
even think he
mean,
mentioned it ever again. Like it never came up.
honestly, I couldn't feel bad for Steppen just because warders don't use non swords.
Yeah.
Like literally, like we had warders with spears, we had warders with
Bows, yeah.
axes, we
And
had
bow and
warders
arrows.
with bows, and it's like these are blade masters.
Yeah,
Why the heck would they use that when they are superior with a sword?
that's
That
absolutely
makes no
wild.
sense.
Yeah.
But
No,
yeah, they butchered every concept of the warder. They butchered every concept of the relationship between the warder and the Aes Sedai. Um, yes, some Aes Sedai slept with their warders, but they made it seem like every single one of them
they
did.
really did. And they made it seem like it was
And
a polyamorous
it's
thing.
like, oh
Which,
yeah,
yeah,
we're gonna go have an orgy in our tent. I'm like, you what now?
brought you
Like,
what?
what? Like, I mean, even the books is like she sleeps with her warders, but not at the same time.
No, like how is there not like rampant just unwanted pregnancies? It's
But
wild. I don't know.
it's almost like, well, I mean, they're Aes Sedai, so they probably just did some
Fetus
weebly
deletus.
jeebly stuff or something.
Wow. Okay.
But like, it's like even like the Rings of Power concept where these relationships are going on, but they're like over in the Wheel of Time anyway. You
Mhm.
have these guys, you know, getting it on for any reason whatsoever, and then over in there they're like, let's just make eyes at the most evil dude in in the
Ugh.
series.
So they
To
did
like,
Raylo. They literally did Raylo again in
but like
Rings of Power.
in the reverse, instead of being the bad guy that goes good, they did the good guy that goes bad.
Well, no, but like you got to remember the thing that got everybody all wet about Raylo was he was the bad guy who's like, you could change me, you mean nothing but not to me, like that sort of toxic, you know,
The toxic
yeah,
masculinity that's not really that realistic in
yeah, that's
terms of
super not
overall
realistic. Yeah, it's
over
like a
the overall
super power
masculinity.
fantasy of like I'm so good that I could change an evil person, like that kind of like bizarre, sort of like cheap dime store bodice ripper romance novel that they did in Raylo, and then
On the 10-cent rack.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they literally. I can't
We
believe.
won't even charge you tax for this. Just get it out of my store.
Yeah, I can't believe they literally did that in Rings of Power. They did Raylo again. That was wild to me. I want someone to do like a parallel compilation of
They're
Raylo.
like how the writers perceived relationships in
Hmm.
the Rings of Power is exactly how they perceive them in the Wheel of Time.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's this concept of, hey, this relationship would be nice and healthy, but that's toxic and that's a white trait, so we can't do that. We have to show all these terrible tropes and stereotypes about non-white people and say that's good for you. Like, what?
I think
That
they were
doesn't make sense.
pandering to those respective crowds. I genuinely think that when they wrote the weird love triangle with Perrin, Rand, and Egwene, I think they were trying to channel that YA love triangle Twilight craze. And I think that when they were doing the Galadriel Sauron. I think they were trying to capture the popularity of that Star
Well,
Wars thing. I think they
according
were
to the
trying to
showrunners of Rings of Power, they said,
the
"Well, we
liar.
totally weren't. We weren't doing that at
Yeah,
all."
the
And it's
liars.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
The
mean,
liars.
it's
Yeah.
not like your entire story was totally broken apart, because literally everything hinged on her making mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake,
Ugh.
and literally she built Sauron's path.
She literally
She literally built
took
it.
him by
She
the
laid
hand and
every
guided him down
she
the
laid
path.
it brick by brick.
Yeah, and then
Every single,
and
which
she
if she hadn't done even one of those, even
uh-huh.
one of them at any point,
All
none
she
of
had
that
to
would
do
have
was
happened.
stop. If she had done nothing, if she had literally just
If she had just
sat
said,
on the island and read a book,
I'm
and
gonna
done
shut
nothing,
up and just go to Valinor, which
yeah,
already is anti-book lore, but
which
if
is
she's
not,
like, I'm just gonna shut up and go to there, literally the end of like evil.
yeah.
The literal end of evil.
Sauron did not rise again. Yeah, that's
It's so
incredible.
bad.
Yeah,
It was so
absolutely.
bad.
So, but
Having
yeah,
to
no.
watch and record that and like
Uh,
review that was the most traumatizing thing in my life.
so let me ask you this. Do you said you watch anime, right?
I do.
Did you watch Full Metal Alchemist ever?
A long time ago, I have very little memory of it. Let's put it that
Okay,
way.
so there was
It was one of the first animes I saw.
there was a scene in that where there was this funeral, and there was a guy who was like kind of a stoic character, and he broke down a little bit at a funeral, for a character who he was like friends with,
Mhm.
and then it was a very dramatic moment, and everybody remembers it. Like to this day, you can go into a weeb chat room and make everybody cry by just being like, "It's a terrible day for rain," by like referencing that scene. And then
I know the reference,
yeah, and then
but
you think about like the scene from The Wheel of Time where where Lan tweaks his nipples and cries like a cartoon character, and then never mentions it again. Like in the shitty anime for teenagers, literally like Roy Mustang, the character who like
yeah.
breaks down at the funeral, like kind of dedicates everything he does after that point to avenging that guy and getting to the bottom of his murder. Like it affected everything in the plot. Like everything
Yeah.
changed after that moment. Whereas
It was
like
more of a vengeance cycle than a revenge cycle.
yeah, and so like and then you think about Lan, who it's just like this big dramatic moment. He makes a fool of himself at this funeral, and then
Which
it's
not once in the book series does he ever show that kind of
no,
emotion. He
no,
shows emotion because he slips every once in a while,
but
but
like
it's
very little, yeah,
never like blatantly sobbing or anything.
screaming even like wailing, yeah. Oh God, it was so
Maybe a
bad.
battle cry as he slaughters a fate
Yeah,
or two, but
yeah.
like from what I understand, even when he's in battle, he's impassionate. He
Yeah,
just
yeah,
goes
he's
in and he's like,
cold.
I'm gonna just go
He's
chop off the heads of 2
Terminator.
Fades and
Yeah,
kill hundreds, if not thousands of not
stone
orcs,
faced. They
Trollocs.
constantly call him stone faced.
And
I
he's
think
just
that's like
like,
the
come
number
on,
one
guys, we gotta
comparison.
go.
They say
But
he's like stone, and I think that sort of plays into the different. I don't want to call it objectification, dehumanization kind of Rand goes through, where he starts to think of himself as an object or a weapon, or as like a lamb for the slaughter, like just blood to be shed on the stones of Tarmangide. And like
yeah,
Rand, to cope with his destiny, starts to sort of dehumanize himself, just so he can cope with the fact that he's going to die. And so it's like an interesting parallel that like Lan is constantly called stone, whereas like Rand is like, I can't be stone, I can't be steel, I have to be Quaindiar. Like I don't know, man.
he finds the most strengthened, strong type of
Yeah,
material, and it's like Heartstone it is. This is what I have to be, because
yeah,
he starts out, I have to be stone, but something happens and it's not good enough. So he's like, I have to be steel. Well, that's not good enough. I have to be Quendiar. And it's just like
yeah,
it constantly has to increase. Where Land's just like, I've been here. I don't know where you've been, but
yeah. It's
like
Lan is
go
stone, and
read the prequel. You'll see where I've been.
it's
But
yeah,
he has so much loss. He loses his close friends. It's nuts.
yeah.
And
God,
he
read
just
the
goes through
books,
so much.
guys. Like I know everybody who watches this probably has already read them like a billion times, but
I
God,
mean, I would
it's
hope
so good,
so.
so
It's
good.
fantastic. But it's like he goes and loses somebody super close to him, more close than any warder, because this is before he even became a warder.
Yeah, it was
He
before
loses
that.
someone super close to him that like literally raised him. It's basically a father figure.
Hmm.
Loses him, and he still holds it together.
Yeah,
He's just like, all right, Moraine, let's do this. And then
Yeah.
boom, we have book
Like,
one. And
could
it's
you
just like,
imagine
this is
how much
great.
more impactful that scene would have been if, like, Nynaeve was observing the funeral and, like, Lan did not move, like, his face, did not, like, completely stone faced. And then, like, she looks over to Nynaeve, or to Moraine, and Moraine's just sobbing. We get to see a little bit of her acting chops. Like, Moraine is just crying, and Nynaeve's like, oh my God, I didn't know you knew this guy. And
I
Moraine explains that I'm feeling it through the water bond. Like, oh man, could you imagine how
that would
much?
explain the water relationship with an Aes
Yes,
Sedai way better than they tried to.
yes. Like, and then we
But
get to
they
see,
had it like him sobbing, screaming out loud, and then she's over there like sniffling and trying to like.
yeah.
And I'm like, that's what are you doing? Like
It could have been
anybody would
so much
see
more
somebody at a
dramatic,
funeral and it's so like depressing, so of course she'd
dude.
be crying. We
Yeah.
don't get that from anything of The View. But my viewpoint was like, what if they had taken that scene, putting a light right above his head, had his head tilted just in the right point where the light hits his nose, but like where the eyes are, it kind of goes black,
Mhm.
and you kind of see that like the flatness chiseled of his face, and you're like, okay, all you can see is like you can't see his eye sockets, you can't see it. It's dark. It's just him looking like he's hard, like
Yeah.
he's upset, but he's holding it together. And then you have that scene from Moraine going, "Oh, he's terrible anguish," or
Like,
something. I mean,
Moraine
I
can't
don't
hold
think he'd
herself
be in
together.
anguish even in that regard, but I
Yeah.
think she'd be like he's hardening himself or something like that. That like
Yeah.
pulls to his character, stays true to his character, but also explains that she can feel what he's feeling. But technically, he can hide his bond from her, and she can hide it from him. So it's possible that he just withdraws into himself, and she's like, "I can't feel anything from him." That's even more powerful
Yeah.
than him like saying like to the sister next to him, like, "Man, he's having a hard time with us." Like, it's just like I can't feel anything at all.
Yeah.
He's
She could be like, for the
completely
first time in many years, I cannot feel anything at all. Something like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, this is like we've been open with each other for over 20 years.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've seen him withdraw like this
And then could you
since
imagine, like, if that moment actually meant something in the narrative, and like Land suddenly, like, I don't know, wanted to go after Logain or something, or just, maybe resented the like, it meant something, and rather than just being a worthless
I feel
throwaway.
like him being stoic would understand that it wasn't necessarily first off, the thing with Logain would have never happened. Steppen
Yeah, I
would
was
have
gonna say,
never
it's
lost
already
his eyes
based
to
on
die,
purity,
therefore blah
so
blah blah blah. None of
yeah.
this would this is all literally pushed to have a titty twisting screen. Like that's
Yeah.
literally what this is. It's like who wants to have a titty twister game? That's literally what they wrote in because all of the stuff they wrote didn't happen the way they happened. Like this is way further south. They would have come from a different
I
route.
honestly think it's sort of this children's perspective of, everybody loves it when, like, the stoic character lets a tiny little bit of a crack of emotion show, and everybody just eats that shit up. And
Uh,
we can't wait. These
I feel
writers
like that's
can't
more
wait. They're
insulting the
too
children, but yeah.
these writers can't wait for their cookie till after dinner. They have to, immediately break the stoic character because they want that payoff. They want it big. They want
Well,
it
they want
dramatic.
their cake and they want it now, or they want to
Yeah.
eat it, and or they want their cake and to eat it,
Yeah,
or
they
eat
don't
their
want to,
cake
like,
and
build it
whatever,
up to make it.
whatever that
It's the
phrase
same
is.
thing with the Nynaeve and the Land thing of, like, we don't want to build up this slow burn, drawn out relationship with yearning and drama. We want it. We want it right
They don't
now.
want to build relationships. They want to
No.
make it look like it's the easiest thing in the world, and that's not
Mm-hmm.
how relationships work. Relationships are work by
Mm-hmm.
default. But with the Steppen thing, he's mentioned like twice in the books,
Yeah.
and like Land's been out of the tower with Moraine for like a solid 20 years.
Absolutely.
Like the White Tower's not even really home for him.
No.
Wherever Moraine is his home. He's used to like sleeping under a bush. He's used to stars and like getting water poured on him for
Yeah.
one.
See,
But
like, I
like
feel like I barely got a feel of their relationship, and they're already trying to, like, jackhammer the exposition of, like, oh, we also had this relationship and this relationship. And it's like, dude, guys, okay, hold on one second. Like, you've only just established this one relationship, and now you're telling me that, like, this other, like, I don't believe you. First of all, you haven't shown it. You've only told me about it. Like, at least there were a couple moments where they showed the Moraine Land relationship in the show, but, like, not convincingly, and not at all faithful to the material they're adapting. But like it's just weird. They're like, oh, by the way, we're gonna throw in like all these additional relationships. And it's like doesn't make sense. Seems like a kid with ADD. Like you're just throwing stuff in. You want the emotional payoffs. Not very satisfying. Kind of worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that was kind of what I had for sort of the relationships as far as like Rand. They sacrificed Rand's struggle with being adopted for the young adult Twilight love triangle, and they sacrificed a whole bunch of other stuff for the Step-In episode, the infamous Step-In episode. So yeah.
Oh, that was so bad.
So bad. So then now we kind of
and then to top it off, before we move on, I just wanted to point out, which I will do in every time I get the opportunity to,
Absolutely.
is that they literally told us they didn't have time to do the story, so they had to cut things, and then they had all this time they wasted on literally useless stuff.
Yeah.
That didn't have any purpose except to drive drama, which is hilarious because the original book has all of this drama.
So much drama.
It's got so much stuff in it that you'd have to cut some of it to fit it all in, and that'd still be your only gain.
Yeah.
But like we missed on Bail Domon, best captain ever.
Oh my god.
We missed
secretly Ta'Veren. I'm convinced. Bail Domon, secretly Ta'Veren.
Not to me, grandmother. But we missed out on a Tom, an actual Tom. Who builds the characters of the boys as they travel to Camelin exponentially more.
So
and Camelin, we're gonna end up probably doing a video on Camelin at some point because that's a totally different thing. But
yeah,
Garion wants to do that, so we're probably gonna do that at some point. But there's so much they missed out on, even though like you could trim off a lot of the fat, like all the extra details and stuff, and have still a good solid flowing series that every episode ends with a cliffhanger or something of good note, and still have the show shine a light essentially on the good guys and the bad guys. So you could see it from Padan Fane's perspective. You could have seen it from Ishamael, aka Balzamon's perspective as he's doing his thing. Maybe Lanfear. You could add a whole bunch of different extra perspectives that are not the good guys and still gotten through the main story rather quickly.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I'm trying to agree. I think it could have been done. I think they wanted to have that gay rep. They wanted to have the, women supporting women rep. They wanted to have the strong woman of color and power rep. They wanted to do the lesbians, and they just had to make room.
Well, it wasn't just that they had lesbians, because I can think of at least one actual lesbian relationship in the books, which end up getting tied underneath the bed. Thank you, Rand.
Wow.
I mean, to be fair, it was that or get smushed. So I mean, I would take that over that, and then basically Rand having blackmail on him for forever.
I also want to point out that like the gays in this show are just kind of like leaning on each other and like giggling and kind of like making illusions. Meanwhile, like the lesbians are undressing each other and like full on, kissing,
going to town.
Yeah, it's like no, this is genuine, authentic representation. This isn't like here for titillation purposes. This isn't like a cold corporate exploitation of the female form and like media being obsessed with lesbians.
You can't really titillate like 90-year-old ladies getting it on. So
they tried, yeah. I just think that people they know people are more horny for the girl on girl and still kind of off put. Like even Game of Thrones hasn't really.
There wasn't a girl on girl though. That was definitely old lady on old lady.
I was gonna say woman on woman.
I'm going to completely skip over the fact that they used literal traveling through a Tirangriel. Like that's a totally different thing.
I was gonna say that just breaks the universe. We just don't talk about that. We can't talk about anything.
That's something that literally is a game changer.
That's like the Holdo maneuver.
No, that's worse than the Holdo maneuver. Like the Holdo maneuver would blow up the galaxy. This blows up the universe. Like literally.
Yeah, that would take us out of time too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got like Star Wars is like, oh, things blow up in space. Whoop-de-doo. This is like, okay, We could literally have
fabric of reality.
you could have Black Aja steal those stupid Tirangriel, give
Mhm.
it to pretty much any bad person, Forsaken or otherwise, and just like totally backdoor everywhere.
Yeah,
Easy peasy lemon squeezy.
wild.
So it's just like I don't know why they thought this wouldn't be game breaking, like at all. But I don't even want to
Again,
go into that. That's a totally
yeah,
different like
again,
that's like a Tirangriel and artifacts kind of
anything to
video.
get the lesbians in there. Literally anything.
Well, I
That's
mean, we can't just have her like show up and have like a formal meeting and then maybe get hot and heavy, which I
yeah.
still would be against. But
Walking through the door, yeah, because they like meet in the office privately later. So like
I
whatever.
mean,
Like,
think of it this way: Elrond had his walk of shame. Why can't freaking Moraine?
wow, that's a deep cut there. Deep cut. Elrond deserved
I,
better.
I mean, Nerdrotic and Friday Night Tights did an epic like coverage of that. I don't, if you don't watch anything else in that show, that's the part because they literally do like a screen by screen of like the facial expressions,
Oh
like literally
no.
like tapping the arrow, and the
Oh,
facial expressions get worse and worse and worse as it
jeez.
goes.
See, but you
And
have been watching She-Hulk, right? You know that,
I have not watched She-Hulk now.
Daredevil also famously does a walk of shame. It's going around, man. We're bringing
Okay,
it back.
I already hate my life enough for watching Rings of Power. I don't need to make it any worse.
Yeah,
By watching something everybody else has already beaten to death. I mean, yeah, they beat to death the Rings of Power, but I actually care about Tolkien's universe. I don't care
yeah.
about She-Hulk.
See, it's the opposite of with me. Like I'll watch them ruin She-Hulk because it's like I don't care about this. This is a dumpster fire. Whereas like Tolkien, it's like, oh man, this is genuinely upsetting to me. I don't like watching this at all.
I was like, people, why are you making me do this? What's wrong with you?
Very upsetting. Yeah, I
The
got the Hobbit.
unhumanity.
As soon as the Hobbits were evil, I got triggered and left. I was like, I can't do it. Can't do it. I'm too upset.
Are you kidding me? The first the opening scene was
Oh,
upsetting.
you know,
Like,
I expected them to ruin Galadriel. I expected them to ruin the elves and the humans because they're big, they're beautiful, they're obvious. But like hobbits are so important because they're small, they're unassuming,
and they're third agers.
they don't belong in the setting. Like so I had no reason to think that they would destroy hobbits. And then they did anyway. And I was like I was devastated. I was like, and because they're the core, they're like the heart of these stories that I love. You know, these every
Well, they're the
yeah,
heart of certain stories. They're not the heart of the
the ones that
Silmarillion,
I
but yeah,
love. Yeah,
yeah.
you
I
notice I
mean,
said the ones that I love. I
well,
can't say I
I don't
love
know. I don't know if you've read the
Silmarillion.
Silmarillion. I love the Silmarillion
Yeah,
because of its history, and I love history. I was a
yeah.
big history buff.
I
I
don't.
still
I
am.
can't as a narrative, as a complete narrative. It's
Well,
it's the
they
hobbits and the
do
elves.
have the books coming out individually that compiled together,
Yeah.
essentially compiled to make the Silmarillion, but
Okay, but there's a reason why
they're individual
The
novels.
Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings are
Well, yeah,
multi generational.
they're the beloved
Yes,
overall.
because
Yes,
it's a solid narrative and it's told through the perspective of these like characters that are the perfect everyman while simultaneously being like history's greatest heroes. They're perfect. Like the hobbits are the heart of these narratives and just
but
ruin
to be
them
fair to Tolkien, he was trying to get the Silmarillion published to be that loved book, and they kept turning him down. So,
because
uh,
you need that based not based like haha hashtag based like you need that solid foundation, you need that protagonist who that everyone can kind of relate to. You need a hobbit to tell
I
the
feel
story.
like the
You need a
story
plucky underdog.
the story. I mean, there's a lot of underdogs in the Silmarillion. Like it's
Yeah,
literally a
but
story of underdogs overcoming.
they're all like demigods and stuff and like
Well, that's
elves.
the thing that makes it even better is that you see these demigods do these amazing acts of just practical, magical, huge proportions. But then you also see these demigods also failing miserably and paying the price for it. So like
Eh,
it's not just a happy ending like what Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is. It's
what
like
speaks more
a
true to
lot
my
more.
heart. Okay, first of all, I don't think you could say that the Lord of the Rings had like a fully happy ending. I mean, Frodo certainly didn't, but I mean,
I mean, he did.
not
He got
really.
away from his aching heart in the Undying Lands.
But like last I thought it was pretty clearly established like he is forever changed and
Well, yes, but it does mention that he does find
carries
a
the
semblance.
darkness.
he finds a semblance of peace in Valinor.
I think you're being a little more generous to Frodo there than
Well,
I.
I like to follow more of Tolkien's spirit of how he writes and how he writes the stories. I'm not saying that it was the ideal situation for him, obviously, but
Mhm.
it's the
I
best
very
outcome
much
he could have.
had
It's the best
a
outcome he could have gotten, and not to
yeah.
mention he has Sam with him as well. So, and there's also Legolas and Gimli and other people he is aware of.
I
Gandalf.
very much read that as sort of the PTSD, the scars will forever be there sort of thing. But that's a whole other thing. I maintain that what's so critical and what's so true and what is so like enduring about those stories is that they come from the perspective of the small people, of the people who love home and food and hearth and who everyone can relate to on that level. And they go out and they encounter these dangers and these triumphs and stuff, and that's what makes them so great. And so to see that deliberately undermined directly in Rings of Power, like, again, I expected Galadriel. She's big, she's hot, she's obvious, of course that's gonna get ruined. But like,
I mean, I wouldn't call her
hobbits,
hot, but
like,
that's just me. But
Kate Blanchett is a snack. I don't know, that's just
oh no, Kate Blanchett. Yes, I thought we were talking about Wings of Power. I was like,
oh
no.
no. Yeah, it's like a weird Welsh woman. Her features are strange to me. I don't know. Too much. There's not enough
I really
genetic
hope Mahler
diversity.
watches this video so he can say the weird Welsh.
There's not enough genetic diversity on that
Uh,
particular plot of land for true attractiveness. Anyway, but yeah, no.
well, I mean,
But
he is an eldritch god, so that makes sense.
what? Oh, who Mueller? He
Yeah,
says he doesn't own the Welsh. He doesn't feel possessive of them.
he
He's
doesn't
fine.
sound Welsh at all, but
It's whatever.
he's
Yeah, no,
Welsh.
but yeah. So I was expecting them to ruin Galadriel. I was not expecting them to ruin my Hobbit folk. Like that was upsetting. But yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I was expecting it all to just burn from the beginning, but that's
Yeah,
because I knew it was going to happen.
yeah,
But yeah, to the Aes Sedai relationships, that was purely put in for Rafe's benefit. Like
yeah.
that's literally it. Like, and he even announced on Twitter stuff about like, oh well, we're gonna add more Pillow Friends in season 2, so get used to seeing it. I'm like, oh gosh, which means they're probably gonna do a Gwen and Elaine, and then Elaine with somebody else, and then
Oh,
Min's gonna do something with somebody, and they're gonna make every woman at least bare minimum lesbian or bisexual. Like
it's kind of what happened
there
in the comic
there
industry right now. It's kind of
there there
bizarre.
there can be no woman who is interested in a man. It can't be Moraine and Tom later on. It can't be Swan and Gareth Bryn. You can't have those relationships.
No, it's completely undercut now. It's well, because I mean, Tom, who the hell is Tom anyway? Why would Moraine?
Who's this Tom you
Who's
speak
this
of?
Tom you speak of? Yeah, absolutely
Like
bizarre.
we're not getting Gareth Bryn at
No,
all. Like
God, no,
there's
no.
no Gareth Bryn.
They
He's
might
literally a solid rock, a foundation of masculinity. There's no chance of him getting in there.
no, they might sex swap him. They might make him a strong woman of color. Then we can be
I
sure.
wouldn't be surprised if Brigida makes an early appearance and she just happens to be the Captain General of Andor before Morghese goes missing, and then when Elaine takes over, she just like slides into the position like normal.
Ugh,
Like
that
that
sucks.
sounds that it would definitely suck, but that sounds
That's
more like the
exactly the
lazy
kind of
writing.
lazy,
Yeah.
corner cutting that they would do. I could see that, which is such a shame because Brigida had a real running for best girl before she fell into the Elaine charisma vacuum. But
I would definitely argue that was not charisma.
no, I said charisma vacuum. It's a
Oh,
vacuum of charisma. She's a black hole, and any
yeah,
other
I guess that.
heavenly bodies that get near her just get like sucked in and destroyed.
Yeah, Rand unfortunately got sucked in for a minute, and
Yeah,
then he left like a Chad.
absolutely. That was the canonical pump and dump.
That was
They
the one
could
that
have waited
actually
for
made
that one.
sense, and it was actually better for his sanity.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Could you
like
imagine trying to deal
I
with
don't.
both those voices in his head and Elaine Tricond? Oh my god.
Oh gosh, I think Luce Theron would be begging for
Yeah,
suicide
Luce
so
there
quick.
could be like,
He'd be
bye.
like, just step in me, come on.
Yeah. That's
Oh
the real
gosh.
solution. He should have hung around, and Luce Theron would have gotten so like annoyed and driven so mad by
I
Elaine.
don't know. I feel like Elaine would come in with like some body servants that are men, and she's like, "Why don't you join me for our orgy with
Oh,
my body servants?" And then Rand's just like, "Nope," and that's it,
nope,
cutting it
nope,
and
nope, 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 nope,
calling
nope.
it quits. And then it's
Well,
just be like, "Oh,
Showrand would probably join right in. You know, that's where they're
well,
at now.
only if Perrin was nearby
Oh
and
yeah,
participating.
Aaron. Yeah, yeah.
Maybe Matt. Maybe
I was
Matt.
gonna say, is Matt confirmed only straight? That's the question.
I don't think Matt at this point I think is asexual, so he's probably like
Oh yeah,
self-reproductory.
because he's a thief,
Um,
right? You know, he doesn't care
yeah,
about yeah.
he's a. Oh gosh, don't even get me started on the thief. Oh,
Oh
people talking about him being a thief. Just
yeah,
I just
dude,
want
we
to
talked
bash
about
my
that
head
for
into
like
skull.
2 hours. Yeah,
I
no,
think it was closer to 3, but yes,
yeah, no,
that in itself made me upset
that's
because like they read so far into it, and I'm just like, how do you get to this?
wild,
How? And they're like,
wild.
well, this. I'm like, you literally had to reach across the universe to find that one. Like
Yeah,
it,
I really hope you warmed up before you did that
like
stretch because you could pull something. Yeah,
no, that just means that makes Reed Richards look like he has
yeah. Reed
nothing
Richards
on
is
them.
blushing right now.
I
Yeah,
know he's just like, man, I wish I could stretch that
I
far.
wanted to
But
stretch
like,
far.
I
Yeah,
mean, like how we were talking earlier, it's just like the simplest thing, like when it comes to like philosophy or logic, it's like the simplest explanation is probably the most correct one.
mm.
Like it's not guaranteeing it, but it's more likely. And
Occam's
there's
razor.
somehow
Yeah,
Occam's razor. It's more likely that Matt's a good guy that just Fate's like, we're gonna take this guy's money from this dude
mm.
who's a gambler who knows he's there to potentially lose his money
Like
anyway.
literally
So
prepared to do it. That's what he's there
you,
for. Yeah,
you have to be to gamble. And it's like, no, that's him thieving. I'm like, no, that's not how that works.
definitionally
Uh,
incorrect. Yeah. Oh,
literally by every definition.
but yeah,
I checked all of them. Trust me. I went through the entire
I went to
synonym
Webster's.
dictionary.
I went to yeah,
No. I didn't go to
dictionary.com.
Webster. Webster's not reliable. I went to like
Oh,
Oxford Dictionary.
oh, Oxford. I see. Okay.
I went to the good dictionaries
Oh man.
and the ones that don't change their definitions every year to fit some stupid agenda.
Oh
But
wow.
yeah, I went to the Oxford Dictionary. I went to a couple Britannica. I went to the good stuff, and I was like, like every synonym of thievery, filching, stealing, borrowing without permission. Like you look up anything, I looked all of them. Not a single one applied in this situation, and they just still couldn't.
I feel like thief, like calling Matt a thief, triggers you almost as much as like saying he has inherent darkness triggers me. Like it's so upsetting the way they've mishandled this character,
Well, that just
like
means
on
they're
different
saying
levels.
what they're really saying about Matt is that there's a tempest in me.
Oh God, there's a tempest in him. Oh my God,
And it's called luck.
jeez, gosh,
Anyway,
What are they even gonna do with that dude? That's crazy.
with the tempest or Matt,
Both, dude.
I have no idea about either of them because they
Yeah.
butchered them both.
Where are they gonna go? There's nowhere to go.
I don't know. Apparently, the Reds are gonna hunt Matt down and like gentle him or something, even though he has no powers. Like
Oh my God.
it's like what they're like pulling the Elias Machira thing, where like Elias had this whole speaking to wolves thing. I change color, can sense things, and they're like, let's gentle him, and it's like, well, of course it doesn't work because it's not the one power.
Yeah.
Like, are you guys trying to like tickle me with some magic or something? Because I don't know what you're doing, but whatever you're doing it doesn't
Not
work.
That's not the thing. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't want to go down the math.
Yeah, let's not go down the Matt
route.
The Matt rabbit hole.
The Matt route. That make this a massive. This would be the longest video
I was
YouTube's
gonna
ever
say,
seen.
yeah.
But and I believe me, I could talk the entire time about it, but I'm not going to.
I was gonna say.
But in terms of like even like Matt's relationships as like a pullover, Matt's relationships with everyone is like literally the most damaged thing I've ever seen in
Yeah.
life. That's like him walking up to every person and slapping him in the face with a fish as hard as possible. And it's just like, what are you gonna do?
Was under like the deepest control of the dagger, he still never abandoned Rand when he could have. He still never did it. But
the only point it got like super bad was right before Moraine shows up in Camelin,
yeah.
and at that point he had been hiding in seclusion, but because his suspicion was about everyone but Rand, it was just like, even then at that point it was so bad that he almost was far gone, but even then he didn't abandon him. Even
Literally,
then he didn't want to kill women. Even then it's like, even when he's like, we should stab the dude and kill him, and he's gonna snitch on us, and Rand's like, what are you talking about?
the
Like
only thing Matt managed to hurt while under this like veil of evil was Rand's feelings. That's the worst thing he managed to do, was hurt Rand's feelings.
Fifis was the only
Yeah,
casualty.
literally the only casualty to Matt's descent into darkness was Rand's fifis. And I'm just gonna point, Perrin chopped a dude's limbs off, sold people into slavery, Rand nuked a fortress. Like, what was the worst thing Matt ever did? I don't know, man. Again, he hurt Rand's fifis. I guess technically people died under his command. I don't know.
Well,
It's hard to say.
dying under someone's command isn't exactly a crime against humanity.
It's really not, especially because
that's literally the only possible outcome if there's any type of fighting.
Yeah, no, and like again, they were all volunteers. None of them were conscripts. They all volunteered. So it's one of those things.
But like relationships between Matt and Oliver, we're not going to get that, because that would be a positive fatherly influence.
Fathers are bad. We can't.
Even though ironically, I wouldn't call that the most positive influence, since he's teaching him to gamble. Well, he's to be fair to Matt, he's trying to keep Oliver from seeing the gambling, participating, and whatnot. The uncles are the real bad part.
They're the bad ones. Yeah. No,
but Matt, like by default, is like his existence near Oliver is basically just a bad influence, even if he's actively trying to not be.
I just want to point out that Matt's dad was a horse trader. Like, one of the first things he did was he got Oliver a fast horse. And I just want to point out that it's a meme that Matt is like barely literate. He wrote that letter to Elaine, and it was like he couldn't spell anything, and Tom was laughing at him because he's like barely literate. Meanwhile, he kind of saw to it that Oliver received, education while they were, there in Abu Dar. And by the end of it,
what was her name? Buxom lady?
The buxom one, I forget. Just the chesty nanny.
R.
Yeah.
In Abu Dar, I remember that both Tom and Julian were sad to see it go.
But no, seriously, like I know that's funny and that's a meme, but like by the end of it, Oliver was more literate than Matt was. Like, say what you want about him being a bad caregiver, but he, expressed paternal concern.
Well, I'm not saying he's a bad caregiver on purpose. I'm saying like just by his existence. I mean, Oliver's always in danger by being with the Band of the Red Hand, because they're mercenaries. They're war dudes. That's what they do, is be in danger. That's literally what they are all the time.
But I mean,
you got Matt
countryside,
Well, I know, but you got Matt being attacked by Shido when they got to his tent.
Yeah.
Like that's Oliver being put in like danger. Then you have Forsaken trying to hunt him down.
He was on the mean streets, I would argue. I would contend that a kid in that sort of medieval Renaissance
I think it would depend on if he is familiar with the streets, but yeah, I mean
he wasn't, because he was freshly orphaned.
Well, yeah, but I think his family had been there for a while, I think. Is what they said. Because it is the Foregate, wasn't it?
I thought the dad died in the battle. I thought his dad died. I thought his dad died a while back. Let's get away from Matt, because we're falling down the Matt rabbit hole. Like,
well, I was gonna cover Tuon and
Thailand. Oh yeah, the relationships. Okay,
yeah. The whole
Circle
video. Back. My circles are very long. That's why
I was gonna say, these are long circles, but we'll get there.
I always get there, just if you're not asleep yet.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm so awake right now.
Okay.
I should not be. But when I guess we'll start with Thailand, because that's the order of the relationships. The whole relationship between Matt and Thailand, we can't really have without women looking bad, so I don't think that's going to happen. If anything, if they have Thailand, it's going to be Matt who's the one who, did the deed against her will, and that's going to be the whole.
That's going to be a kerfuffle. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, they're trying to upset the fan base in like not necessarily the show, like the show fan base, not the book fan base, by having this evil, wicked man do such horrible things to a woman when it's actually in reality the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's
And
all
it's
about
like,
angering the right people, quote unquote. So they'll twist that situation into whatever kind of suits the narrative, however that
yeah,
goes.
which always ends well.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole Thailand thing is probably not going to be handled particularly tastefully. No matter what they do with it.
I doubt I'm highly doubt, because I don't know if they're doing the Bowl of the Winds thing, because like the weather and all that stuff's probably not going to go down the drain.
Yeah.
And they'll skip out probably that entire section. So Abu Dar is never a thing. So they'll never find Thailand. They'll have probably Tuon come in from Terabon and Arad Damon and Ameth Plain territory, and that's how they accidentally run into her. And then I don't even know if they can have him kidnap her, because that just shows that men are more powerful than women, and we can't have that. Even though she's like a martial arts trained princess, like
Yeah.
even
She's
then,
also
she's
supposed
like,
to be small though. Like,
well, she is small, but she's like basically trained in like taekwondo, so like she can flip somebody over, because I think she does to Matt at one point. Um,
mm,
where she flips somebody. It might not have been Matt, but she flips somebody, and Selucia, that's her
Solution. Yeah, that's the
that's
one.
her handmaiden slash bodyguard. Selucia can handle people because
Yeah.
she's specifically trained to do so.
That's like the whole
But
point of her. Yeah.
yeah, she's the bodyguard. But
Mhm.
Tuwon was also trained, and she states that she was trained in the ways of unarmed combat, daggers, weaponry, stuff like that, because her life is always at risk. So like she was specifically trained to stay alive, so she could eventually potentially be the Empress. That
Mhm.
was the whole concept behind it, and we're not going to get that because Matt getting his hands on her, kidnapping her, would show some weakness or something. On the other hand, they could do it the same story, but just put lots of emphasis on Matt's evil. He's, enslaving her, and look how toxic he is. Like,
Well, no,
that's how
because
they would do it if they try
I
to
think
stick
I
to the narrative.
imagine that the way it's going to go is, because in the book it's like he kidnaps her, but she kind of like, as soon as he says like she's my wife, she's my wife, she's my wife, like she kind of like
She's
goes
my
with the
bloody
flow.
wife.
She's my wife. She kind of goes with the flow. She's kind of trolling the situation. She's kind of trying to like feel him out, see what kind of guy he is, see how he reacts to her like messing with him and stuff. I feel like if they did do that situation, he would like overpower her at first, and then she'd like get the upper hand on him, and she'd only let him go because like, oh, she's my wife, she's my wife, she's my wife, and somehow it would end up with her getting the upper hand in a more like stupid, boneheaded, obvious way, like her overpowering him. Unlike in the book
Yeah,
where she gets the upper hand by just sort of by virtue of being who she is and
by
on
annoying him.
relationships, yeah, and playing the long game and being a manipulator, yeah.
Well, that is a female trait, don't you know?
Just how dare you? But yeah, no. But they would
I
definitely.
noticed something strange about that. You didn't say I was wrong.
How dare you? You're very mean to say such a thing.
I'm totally getting the Greta Thunberg. It's like, how dare
How
you?
dare you? How
You've ruined
dare
my
you?
childhood. You've ruined my dreams. But you told the truth too.
How dare you? Yeah, but yeah, no. So Matt's relationships are kind of ruined.
So
Parents,
how are we gonna have the Shan wrangled into this in a good way if that doesn't happen? I
what
have
do you
no
mean?
idea.
Wrangled in a
Well,
good.
like, well, because the Shan joined the last battle on the side of the light due to Matt persuading his wife that this is the way, and also the Taviran in him, and also the Taviran in Rand pulling him and adding to his effect to get her over. And even the whole thing where like Matt has the Shan pull back, like they're leaving, like saying, screw you guys, we're
maybe
out,
maybe
and
what
then
they
brings them
do.
back in full strength again.
Maybe what they do, because they said inherent darkness, some of you will turn to the dark one. Maybe it's literally Sean Shan, Matt, Tuan, they're on the other side, maybe
I
maybe
wanted I just had when you said that, I had a flashback of Shrek. It's like, some of you may die, but
some of
that
you
is
may
that is a
die. Well,
sacrifice I'm willing to make.
Moraine said like some of you will turn to the dark one. So yeah,
No, not the dark one. The dark.
the dark. Oh yes,
Because finishing our sentences is too difficult.
it's too much. It's too much.
And not the
It's
taint.
patriarchal, really.
What do they call it now? Not the taint, but
The corruption.
I guess, which
The
doesn't make
bore.
sense.
No, yeah.
Like
The
I don't like they're saying we can't call it the taint because it's a joke. Ha 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 ha. I'm like, but no, like literally it taints the literal source. That's why it's called the taint, because it's the taint on the source. It's tainted.
It doesn't have to be juvenile.
I don't think once they use it. I don't think it's once used in the book as corruption.
See, I don't think when the book was being, what do you mean? It wasn't used as corruption?
Like the term corruption specifically is not used to describe it. It's always the taint, because
if it was probably a Sandersism too. Like, you know how Weaver or Channeler was a Sandersism.
Corruption is very different than taint. Taint is like a touch on. Corruption's like through and through.
Oh,
like
true, yeah.
Saidin itself would have been corrupted and no longer attached the same way that Saidar is. It would be completely. It'd be like a whole. It'd be like Spider-Man versus Venom. Like Venom completely envelops you, or Spider-Man's like, yeah, well, I'm just kind of touching on this. Like I have some superficial abilities, but I don't like have any morphing things. I'm not turning into something else. And Venom's is like, no, I'm gonna become you in its entirety. Where the taint is like, hey, there's some oil on the top of the ocean, but you can stick your hand through it and feel the ocean.
Yeah. So
but it's not a pleasant experience, but that's the major difference. And now they're like, well, we're going to use this word instead. Literally gives an entire different connotation to what it does, how it acts, and everything. But then again, we had the entire butchered scene, like the relationship between Luce there and Telamon, and I forget her face because she's not really worth remembering, but essentially Egwene, the Egwene of the no, she wasn't the Amerlin seat. He was.
Oh, that's right. I thought that was something they changed. I thought that
they did change it. She is in the show, but like in the actual story, like their relationship, he's actually the Amerlin.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why. The Egwene, she's the Amerlin.
The Egwene wannabe or something. Yeah. Or like, I guess Egwene is technically her. Like there's a parallel of her, or like Luce Theron and whatever her face was. I don't even care about it enough to go find it, but I have it in my books. But her and Luce Theron is basically Rand and Egwene in the last battle. Like it's literally parallel, because in the Age of Legends, their relationship was good until, you know, the bore popped open. Thanks, Lanfear. And she's like, all right, ladies, you have to swear to me you'll never join the men in their crazy plot. And they're like, okay, we swear, because that makes sense. But then she's like, well, let's go and make this massive sa'angreal.
Yeah.
two pairs. How they made the second one, I don't understand, because you need a man to do it anyway. So whatever. But to make them powerful, you'd have to have the men participate anyway. Because that's the whole theme about like Robert Jordan, is that, you know, better together. Like the synchronization of Saidar and Saidin complementing each other is what makes it way more powerful than just having a couple individual people separate, not doing it together. Like that's the entire point and theme of the entire series, and somehow you can dodge that. But so we don't really get an explanation on how the Chodan Kal are actually made, beyond that the women made them or planned to make them and then made them, but somehow they lose them to the shadow. Like, how do you
things where you get the impression in the earlier books when you like first see it that it's like, this is like a world building thing. This is, you know, this is something that just shows that the ages have passed. And then it's like, oh, 6 books later, it's like, oh no, this is the most important thing that's ever existed. And you're like, oh damn, okay.
And not to mention that the women absolutely fail and lose the access keys to the shadow.
Who knows?
But somehow the shadow don't even know what they have.
Yeah.
And they would have absolutely wiped the floor with Luce Theron when he goes to shut down the bore, if they knew what they were using. Because they'd be like, yeah, we're just going to use this on our side. And then blam, just like zap him with the biggest spirit bomb I've ever seen in my life.
Biggest spirit bomb, yeah.
Then it's like even better is that they're saying her plan was great, his plan is terrible, and it's like, but his plan would have been great if they had joined him in doing so. And if she had brought the Shodan call, that would have helped a lot too. But they're like,
Of course, there was a
people act
total breakdown of communication, it seemed.
well, yes, men are stupid. That was
That was, yeah.
that was the
Okay.
overall thing.
Tell you what, so I'm starting to flag here. I'm like
Yeah.
starting to fall. Like let's do
You want to hit the last part?
Let's do the last part, and then I'm gonna call it,
Okay.
like, because I'm starting to
Yeah.
like not be able to like function. So,
Cognitive functions are starting to slip. Yep.
yeah,
Well,
I had class.
that's what we get for doing this at like 2 a.m, you know?
Yeah.
Whatever.
So,
All right. So, one of the big parts about this entire video is the news coming from season 2, and Rafe Judkins' specific Twitter page kind of had all this stuff up, and I'll just read it, and anybody who wants to go find it, you can probably find this anywhere on the internet, let alone Rafe's place. It's back in 2018, so there you go. He goes and says, "Hey, here we go. I'll answer one question per person, blah, 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 as long as it's response to this thread, Watt Wednesday, Wheel of Time, hashtag, whatever." He's like, "Oh, I can't also answer most questions because of NDAs and the desire to surprise and serious." Oh, you surprised us. Not really.
say, everyone was surprised.
Dramatic suspense, etc., but I'll do what I can. So this guy's like, "Hey, Rafe, is Rand's romance plot going to remain close to the books? Like liking one girl at first, but ending up with 3 in the end?" And his response was, "No." And people like,
honest, yeah.
now, hold on. And then
several questions.
Somebody went on to, looks like, I believe it was Dragon Mount, which used to be a cool site. It's kind of a shill place now.
I was gonna say.
It was fun while it lasted, even though no one ever really interacted on there, which is funny. But when asked that, some guys like, "This question is one of the ones that really surprise and scare me. I feel like the unnaturalness of Rand's romance and the prophecy associated with it, as well as the job it does in bringing together the Aiel, Andorans, and Min's work later on, makes essential for it to be included. What are your thoughts?" Now, I had brought this up earlier in terms of like how, before we did the show, to like, those 3 women have ties to their respective groups. And we know, Avienda, Aiel. Elaine, the Andorans directly, but also indirectly pulls in as a ruler of the southern nations, can kind of pull in some of the southern nations as well with her influence.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Min over here with like the Shan massive juggernaut, dreadnought, whatever you want to call it, like juggernaut, the massive size of the Shan. So
ability to project force unlike any other army. Yeah,
pretty much. But the one army that's able to just absolutely clear territory at exponentially high rates. But it's like all 3 of these women have these things, and it's the pattern saying these 3 women are going to play a big role in your life. The first one, Min, knows the second she sees you that she's going to fall in love with you, but hides it. And then basically at the end of book 2 is like, "I don't want to fall in love with this guy. What do I have to do with that?" And then, she just like slowly is just like, "Well, would you look at that? I'm falling in love with him."
Yeah, no,
and then
it's a great arc too, because like she's probably the best. She's total manic pixie dream girl, but she is like best GF by the end, in my opinion.
I really was disappointed with how her and Rand dealt with the Semirog thing.
Yeah, but
because it's like, she should know he would never do that willingly.
Yeah.
And she's just like, "But I keep seeing him squeeze my life out of my body." And I'm like, but you know better than that. You know that's not, like, he feels terrible. The perfect opportunity, especially with the whole "we don't want him going to the dark side" thing, the perfect response from her would have been going up to him while he's turned away, put her hand on his arm or on his shoulder, and like be like, "Hey, I know it wasn't you. It's not your fault. I forgive you." And even if she had some slight slivers of doubt, if she just said that, and meant it at least as much as she possibly could, that could have changed how he felt. Because basically what Semirog does is basically makes him go even harder and harder, which causes him to make more and more mistakes.
Yep.
And
So yeah,
her
very
doing that was
important that
countered.
that relationship is maintained. So
Yeah.
having her be like the bitter bartender who thinks he's scum and who they genuinely don't seem to have any kind of connection. I can't see them have any connection going forward is, very concerning to say the least. That nothing more seems to be there.
And that's the thing with, like, it's that way with every single girl, although I despise Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
Everyone hates Elaine, yeah.
Avienda's nice because she's naive.
Inconsistent. Again, like,
She's naive about relationships because she's
yeah.
never had one. So that this experience for her is completely brand spanking new.
Mm-hmm.
And she's so caught up in, like, early on wise, like, hiding her own feelings and just pushing Elaine onto Rand. Like, no, Rand, you can't have any woman other than Elaine. She is yours. And then, like, ends up sleeping with him in
Yeah.
Shan magically. And then all of a sudden it's just like, I know we slept with each other, but you're only meant to have Elaine. And he's like, but we have to get married now. Like, we just did the deed. Like,
Not
what?
anymore. I mean, in the Two Rivers, you can just, do whatever you want. But
I mean, hey, if there's a kitchen nearby,
yeah.
it's like,
See, that was the
I'm a,
problem, was there was no
I'm
kitchen in
I,
Shan over there.
yeah, that little hut in the middle of nowhere. There's a hunting
Yeah,
lodge.
the igloo. Yeah.
It didn't have a kitchen, but man, it had a nice bed, aka rug, aka blankets. But but
Yeah, the igloo. Yeah.
the whole concept that they try to, like, push at this character's just gonna come be whatever doesn't make much sense, because her entire role is to teach him the culture of the Aiel,
Mm-hmm.
which the polygamy aspect of their relationship, the three girls and him, is the Aiel culture. Like,
Yeah,
she's supposed, like,
kind of modified. Yeah.
her job is to imprint that into him, not necessarily to, like, push him into it, but to, like, imprint, like, this is a part of culture. You have to get used to this. Like, you'll see this. Like, you'll see the clans that have the sister wives. You'll have all these things. The sister wives are the ones who pick them. Like, we found out through Gaul, Bane, and Chiod that basically if Gaul wants Chiod, he's got to take Bane, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not what he wants, it's what Chiod wants. And it's like, it's gonna end that way because the Aiel culture gives the power to the women. Unless the women show up and they're the ones who make the bridal wreath. Then it's on the men to do
Yeah.
so. But
Because
most of the time
it's an alien culture. It's different, and so
yeah.
the polygamy is a different aspect of the fact that, like, this is a strange culture, and
It's
just
supposed
like
to be
how,
the exotic culture that you see
yeah,
for the
that
first
we
time when you run
discover as
into
a
it.
reader, that we learn about, just like it's unusual that they have spear wives, just like it's unusual that they have Jiito, just like it's unusual that, a man would kill another man over a puddle of water that wouldn't reach your ankles. Also they have like sister wives. That's pretty, out there. So
But
yeah, it's just like an aspect of the world building and of the
but
culture.
the best part about the world building is that because it's so exotic,
Mm-hmm. It's out there. Yeah, it's kind of wild.
it's so different from the next location that they can go to,
Mm-hmm.
like Kyrian. And then Kyrian's exotic compared to the Aiel and Andor. So you go somewhere else. Like, everywhere you go is exotic to the characters. It's
Yeah.
never, I've already been here. I've already seen this. I've already done this. Nothing surprises me. They go see strange people in strange outfits, eating strange food in strange houses with strange hats on their heads. Like, that's literally them going out into the world and being like, yeah, I just literally went around the world in 80 days. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I got my souvenir bag full. I gotta go take it back to my parents and to my siblings, and I gotta give them all this cool stuff because look at all these cool places. It's never dull because there's always a place to go that hasn't been to yet.
Yep.
They're
And
all
yeah,
different.
so the sort of exoticism that, that wonder of discovering someone new, the polygamy is sort of an aspect of that. So
Yeah.
that was sort of, Avienda's part of it. Is she's sort of introducing this other culture. She's basically giving, Rand this insight into his main shock troopers, his main like fighting force, like that alliance, that understanding that she gives him is so critical for his success as the dragon and in his future campaigns, and a lot of his just like fundamental character development as a person, as well as him sort of embracing the Aiel way and coming to understand them a bit. So
And I would say even more especially the fact that he also wields the 13 clans, the most powerful military that's non-magic based in
yeah,
the world.
exactly, yeah,
Kind of important to know how they function.
exactly, yeah.
And
And
the fact
she
that he literally is one of them kind
mhm.
of helps. But the
and,
thing
and,
that
and
holds him
Avienda was
back,
the bridge between him and them, so that
well,
was
yeah,
that was
but
important.
the thing that holds him back is, yes, I am one of you, but I was raised by these backwater country folk that are very traditional and very conservative comparative to the rest of the world.
Yeah,
They have standards. They say this can't be done. Like that's the whole reason. Like after he sleeps with Avienda, he's like,
we have to get
we
married.
have to get married, and she's like, no, you're getting with Elaine. He's like, but we just did what literally only married people are supposed to do. And that's his
Mhm.
viewpoint because that's where he grew up, that's what
Yep.
he knows, and it makes sense to him. And this concept of, oh, I'm gonna get passed off to another woman, like
Yeah.
what, this is weird. And the polygamy aspect is specific to this culture. I don't think the Shanshan have like concubines and stuff for like royalty. I don't think it's a normal thing
Yeah,
amongst
but like
their
a
regular
harem is
people.
very different than like polygamy and very different from polyamory.
Well, I guess to a certain extent, but I'm saying like that's normal probably for some like royalty groups, even amongst Randland. Like they're not going to be like, oh well, there's a concubine, what's that, like that's not abnormal in royalty, even in history in any shape or form. So it's not too far off the
Yeah,
reservation.
but
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 like a polygamous relationship amongst everybody in the entire culture, that's a bit off the reservation, and it's
absolutely.
weird for people to understand. So then Rafe goes on, is like, hey, let's just say I'm much more interested in polyamory than polygamy,
Ugh.
and maybe give me a little more credit than assuming I'm going to put that entire story, or gut that entire story and ruin everything off of a one word answer. And I'm like, well, if you're going to add polyamory to that relationship, by default, you are going to have to gut that relationship,
Yeah,
because
definitionally.
you're changing the direction of the attention and love. And it's assumed that it's going to be Avienda and Elaine. That's
Yeah.
the assumption. I'm wondering if they're going to bring in Min just for the kicks and giggles, because Min hasn't really done anything. And why is she in this to begin
She
with?
doesn't
Because she
really
has
seem
nothing.
age appropriate. I would not be surprised if they just skip Min altogether and it's
Well, I
just
believe it was the White Cloaks that said that they've literally done everything in their power to make everyone in this, like all the women, to be absolutely horrendously ugly.
well,
Like they've gone out of their way to do that. And
they've absolutely
Elaine's supposed to be the one that like changes everything allegedly, and I'm just like, that's just because she's young and doesn't have life experience or anything. But maybe that's supposed to fix this, whatever. But
but
the
yeah, no.
major
So
issue is that
the big thing is they're gonna have Elaine and Avienda lesing it up, and that was just sort of
that's going to pull away from their relationship with Rand, because they're all three supposed to be heavily like obsessed with Rand romantically,
mm,
I want to say a healthy obsession. Like they both love that, or
they're
both,
devoted. We could say that.
they're all devoted and love him truly,
Eh,
more in the Mormon sense than the
yeah,
polyamorous sense.
I would also say that they were certainly friends and they were like sisters and they have a whole weird sisterhood ritual,
Sister wives,
and I
yeah.
think that well no they became
Or
second
you mean like the
sisters.
first
First
sisters and
sisters,
second
yes, they
sisters?
became
Yeah,
first sisters separate from, and they
yeah.
were essentially order bonded. Um, they that relationship actually like predated Avienda's relationship with Rand, and they actually have more on-screen time together as friends, so it's a bit strange that we're taking the female friendship where we do have women supporting women, um, and we're going to make it into a romance, which is again very strange because the function that they serve really isn't that of lovers. Elaine kind of relies on Avienda because Avienda is more practical and ruthless. She gives that Aiel insight and is kind of fundamental when Elaine is navigating, taking the Lion Throne. And
And
she
Avienda trains her on the ideal ways of
yeah,
like how they deal with these outsiders and ruffians and stuff like that,
exactly.
which gives her like a little bit more ferocity than people probably expect from someone like Elaine.
Absolutely, and we never forget it was Avienda who made Elaine apologize to Matt and kind of softened her on some of her more obnoxious
pointed
behavior.
out that she has told the people she's treated like crap
Yeah,
when they're bending over backwards to keep her safe despite her enormous stupidity.
yeah. So we are this. So once again, we're sacrificing one relationship that has a lot of layers and brings out a lot of different colors and aspects of both of these characters for the sake of a little bit more on-screen girl on girl. Clearly meant to titillate the viewer, clearly just sort of a cheap cash grab. And Rafe is going to say that no, this is genuine, authentic representation. When
Well, there's also the potentiality of Perrin simping after Avienda, which is gonna be stupid.
I've heard that one a lot too. I'm not entirely sure where that comes from, but it would not surprise me.
I believe it was from a leaked script, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
where they also had the Gawain and
yeah, the
Gawain
Gawain,
and one of the warders was having like a
I think
thing for each other. And
read that
it
one.
was like very subtle, like, oh, you can bake in my kitchen if you want to, like that kind of thing. It's just like
Yeah,
it's so not subtle
yeah,
because they're trying so hard to not be. And I'm like, I pray that at the very least, they're fake scripts that they're just trying to like get
yeah.
an
That was
actor
those
in
were the
to
audition
see how that's
scripts.
what you
Yeah,
that's what you'd think.
test the
But
waters,
then
leak it.
after watching the first season, it's just like I'm not so sure anymore. Like
Yeah,
that could be the exact like scenario between Perrin's conversation with Avienda and them end up having some form of a relationship because of it. And it's just like
ugh.
I don't
See,
know.
I like Avienda was such a mad lass. She was such a Chad, like absolutely, crushing it out here. Meets the literal messiah figure for her people and just pops that cherry. Like what a lass. Like, and then the tension from that of having to go back kind of with her tail between her legs and explain it to Elaine and them coming to terms.
I feel really bad about it until Elaine's just like, oh no, that's fine. I'd rather share with share him with you than with some randomody that I don't care about or love. And it's just like,
yeah, they were pretty practical about it.
Gosh.
It was, I think Elaine had a few moments where she was possessive, but also she was pretty much like, yeah, this is inevitable. I think they all knew there was some destiny shit going on. Like, can't fight fate on some level.
But yeah, like how they're gonna probably pull this is gonna derail the relationships away from Rand and amongst the girls. And I just know we're gonna get like a Witcher, Game of Thrones style sex scene.
Yeah.
That's gonna be just a whole bunch of stuff that takes up a lot of time away from the actual episodes.
Mm-hmm. And I think that in their effort to display this concept of healthy polyamory, of positive poly relationships, they're going to sacrifice the tension,
story characters, and everything that they don't
challenges.
already have.
What's that? Yeah, they're going to just sacrifice everything. It's not going to be worth it, everything that was there on the page, they're just going to throw it away for this representation idea. And it's not going to be as good.
Yeah, and we're unfortunately going to be the recipients of a terrible time.
Yeah.
But anything else you wanted to add into that?
I don't think so. I think we kind of covered it all. Yeah, no,
I mean, there's potential for more information to come out about what he was referring to in terms of adding more of that content.
I know some people thought that was pointing towards the Rand, Perrin, and Egwene thing, but I think it's far more likely about the Avienda, Elaine, Rand thing.
Yeah, I don't like them messing with basic core functions that, and I'm not saying this flippantly, but like legitimately, if you compare all the aspects of the books and you like put a pin on a map and like had string between the two pins and we're like, oh, I'm going to pin over here because this is where I find this particular thing. I'm going to pin over here because this is where I find this thing. Or I'm just going to stand here, wait for it to, like populate and be like, hey, let's run with this story. We're not going to get any of that because they're just going to cut every single one of those lines and
Yeah.
all the stories that come with it, all the relationships, anything is just going to go out the window, and we're just going to get this mass heap of the weirdest things in the world.
Yeah, it's going to be bizarre. That's the one thing I can say for season 2 is I feel like it's just going to be wild. Like nothing's going to make sense.
I can't take Uno seriously.
Yeah,
he's a short dude with a man bun and has an eye patch, but he's like this little tiny dude. I'm like,
yeah,
Uno's somebody you look at and you're like, that dude's a vet. Like
yeah.
that dude's he's seen some battles. He's killed the Trolloc or two. Like he knows what he's doing, and he's a heavy cav expert. Why is he fighting like he's an idiot?
Why is
like,
he a manlet?
Yeah, I don't understand what's going on.
Yeah. Well, we can't have men looking cool except for Lan, but he's a good one.
We can't have non-desert scenes either. They're all desert. And it's like, whatever happened to green lush grass and stuff? Like
this is like the Star Wars problem. I'm sick to death of Tatooine. The next person who builds a Death Star needs to destroy Tatooine. I'm sick of it.
There's more than one desert planet. That's the problem.
Well, but that's the main one. That's the one they keep going back to. Destroy it. I'm sick of it. Bring in Thrawn. Have Thrawn Death Star the Tatooine. I don't care. Just get rid of it. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of deserts. They suck. But yeah, no.
I love snow territories, so that's where I'd be at. But
I have too much snow in my real life. Snow territories suck. Give me a tropical island. Give me a Mediterranean cruise.
That's too hot.
No.
I start sweating in 67 degrees.
You got to build up your immunity. After 8 months of just miserable.
Well, no, my immunity is a affinity to the north, not the south.
No. Give it a couple weeks. You'll be fine. You'll get used to it.
That's a couple weeks of misery I'd rather not have.
No, but then you're in the sun, and it's great.
I don't like the sun. I'm like the palest person on the planet.
Dude, I burn after like 5 or 6 minutes. The point is you got to prepare for it. You got to,
it takes you that long? That's a long time. It takes me a lot less time than that.
Oh, really? Oh, I open the refrigerator. I can get a sunburn. We can have a white off all day. Let's go. But, yeah.
I'll beat you with paper. Ha.
I've got Elmer's here. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. We might. I mean, if they ever get any extra one, we might make like a little short clip of any extra information if you ever want to come back on for that.
Yeah. If you have a topic or something you want me to talk about.
I have topics out of the wazoo. I got like 27 scripts on the back end.
Gosh.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I could do it this late again. This is sort of a
Oh, I know. This is a little dangerous for me, but we just had too much fun. So
absolutely.
I don't think the wine helped either. But I'm not quite like Pips and Dane and Alex, but I was already exhausted before I got to this, so this is just me trying to cope myself together.
Yeah, I had about a 10-hour day before this, so yeah. We'd be very lucky if any of this made any sense, honestly. I'm hoping. Thought.
Let's hope the editing goes well.
Yeah, the editing boys are the real heroes out there. Yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that will wrap up this video, considering that's everything with the I shouldn't say that's everything. That's the TLDR version right there.
Yeah, that's what we can manage before I just pass out and go to bed.
2+ hours is the TLDR version of a 15-book series of relationships that gives us a show. So yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out.
Thank you.
I mean, Hannah, you're a champ.
Oh, thanks.
You're almost a trad wife. We just gotta get you the husband.
Well, one day I'm gonna find him.
Trad husband. You can be the trad wife, and then
I'm on the hunt right now. I'm looking.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Should I be like cautioning him or like
what? It's like 90. There's no escape. This is happening. Just gonna hunt him down to the ends of the earth.
I guess that means he's gonna be double your age. So I guess.
Don't say that. Yeah.
You're like, we're going full naive here, guys.
No.
You just went full naive.
Yeah,
Never go
you
full
never go
naive.
full naive. Fair enough.
All right. Well, thanks, Santa, for joining.
Absolutely.
All the viewers, enjoy the White Cloaks
Yeah, come on
videos
over,
and
check
stuff.
out the White Cloaks.
They have a lot of good content. They're fun, especially when they're drunk and they don't know what they're saying anymore. It's great. Also check out Prophet of the Dragon. He's got some excellent
He's got
and
good
fun.
stuff, yeah.
Yeah, he's got some fun stuff. I love calling out for Steve because Steve's a dude. He's a Chad.
Mhm.
But yeah, remember to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, but most importantly, please share this video everywhere. Thank you guys for your support. Walk in the light, my friends.
Walk in the light.